Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very best time of the year and to the Matchbook Cheltenham Preview. It's our anti-post preview. We are but a few weeks and a day out from the Cheltenham Festival, and we're all very excited. We've amassed a brilliant team for you. We've got Charlie Poste, Steve Jones, Matt Toombs, Dan Overall, Donn McClean, and the return of the great Micheál Deasy. How we've missed his dulcet, unintelligible tones on this podcast. And we are delighted to have him back. But I don't care how anyone is, because that's not what this is about. We're going to get stuck straight into the previews. I'm going to tell you a few things first of all. We're racing to 5,000 Matchbook YouTube subscribers. We want to get there by the end of Cheltenham. So if you are watching this on YouTube, just subscribe. We want to get to 5,000. And if you subscribe, it helps you. And of course, it helps us as well. So please do subscribe. It's very easy to do so. Daniel Hussey is demonstrating, if you're watching, exactly how to do that. If you're listening to this on the podcast, it's pointless. Fast forward about 15, 20 seconds. But if you're watching, that is how you do it on YouTube. There you go. So please do subscribe. We want to hit 5,000 by the end of the Cheltenham Festival. There are £25 free Cheltenham bets for you out there. This competition is like last year. There's one for every 50 likes and comments. So if you like the video, doesn't have to be live. You can do it whenever you like the video, and then comment subsequently. Whatever you like. It can be horses you fancy, abuse. We don't care. That is how you enter the competition. And we'll select one of you in every 50 for a £25 free Cheltenham bet on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Check out the next Cheltenham Trail. That's going to be on Wednesday with Donn McClean, Matt Toombs, and Daniel Hussey, and at Jake Price Racing. Jake's a handicap specialist. You may have seen a lot of his tweets at Jake Price Racing, and this will be focused on the cross country, the bumper, and the Hunter Chase entries. Lucky Jake. And the Cheltenham Handicap Special with us will be on Wednesday, the 6th of March at 7:15. So that is a week and 2 days away. Check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange for the best prices on the Cheltenham Festival, and we're going to be screen sharing those prices for you to show you where Matchbook are priced up at the moment. Right. Feel free to leave a no bet or no strong opinion on a race. Oh, no, I'm not meant to read that bit out. That's just for the panel. It was all going so well up until that point. Good. Right. The Supreme, everybody. That's where we're going to start with the first grade one of the meeting. Before I do prices, I'm going to come to the trend if I can. So we're going to have Matt Toombs with a trend for almost every race. I don't think we've got one for the champion, but otherwise your trend. And reminder, this isn't just a trend. This is leading you towards underbet horse value. Is at the heart of Matt Toombs' trend.
So the trend is that grade one winning hurdlers are 10 from 35 this century, 17.49% profit. 7 of those 10 have come in the last 11 renewals. Ballyburn and Django Bahia qualifiers, the latter looks set for Aintree. And I wanted to include this trend for the first race to emphasise that trends shouldn't be used literally. It's the theory behind the trend that matters, not the bare statistics. It's top class novice, are just labels. It's the best 2-mile novice hurdling form that we're looking for. And in simplistic bare form terms, arguably, the best piece of form is a maiden hurdle at Fairyhouse at the start of December. In that race, they went steadily. Firefox sprinted away from Ballyburn, won by 2.5 lengths. They were in the air together 3 out, but when they started racing, Firefox just looked to have too much speed for Ballyburn. Getting on top, coming to 2 out, Ballyburn was a little bit awkward, never landed a blow after that. If you'd never seen either of those two before or since, Firefox would be 10s on for the rematch. But the general consensus is Summer Willies were coming on more for the run this autumn. Firefox had a fitness advantage having run the bumper. Ballyburn's just improved out of all recognition, especially for forcing tactics. So you can discount the form. And I'm not so sure. Firefox won pretty easily. Vibes are very strong. Gordon had the Royal Bond winner that weekend. Asked by Gary O'Brien who was the best novice hurdler he had, unequivocal Firefox. Jack Kennedy subsequently said the same. He did disappoint at Nace next time, but returned home slightly lame. Gordon had a bit of a cold in his yard. The horses weren't finishing out their races. So I think you can put a line through that. Even if you were certain Ballyburn would turn up here, not the Bearing Bingham, the prices just look wrong to me. I think Ballyburn's a quality novice. He's not one of those weak favourites I want to lay, but so's Firefox. I think he's a fair chance of confirming the form, and he may not have to face Ballyburn again. So I think he's a cracking anti-post bet to kick off the week.
And that is one of the conundrums: is where is Ballyburn going to run? Because I think after Tully Hill cemented himself as a potential Grade 1 horse over this distance, the suggestion was that, well, they've got Mystical Power and Tully Hill, who are likely to go for this race. Tully Hill's only entry. Ballyburn will go elsewhere. But the exchange has moved in favour of Ballyburn of late, and Mystical Power has drifted out a bit. Ballyburn 2.68. It's just more Mullins bingo. It's great. Tully Hill 8.8, Mystical Power 8.85, Fox now 8.4, Jericho de Repene 11.0. Sorry, Tell Her the Name 16.5, Slade Steel 24.0. You can see the back and the lay prices there. There's a bit of a discrepancy. Some of those bigger prices that'll get a tighten up as we approach the festival. And as you're looking at these Matchbook exchange prices, you are likely to be getting better odds given the nature of the exchange than you would do with your general sports book. There we are. Steve Jones, I'm desperate to hear from you. Oh, God.
It was odds on.
It was odds on, and it's been landed. And so that's
very impressed with Tully Hill. Very impressed with your presenting as well. Very impressed with your Wi-Fi, considering it didn't work on Friday. So you must have paid the bill. So hats off to you. But Tully Hill, again, it is a Willie Mullins kind of. He's got so much ammunition in this race. But what Tully Hill did last time at Punchestown, I thought was most impressive. Just bobbed along and won unchallenged. And okay, that was only a listed race, and it might not have been the deepest, but there was plenty of horses going into that off the back of decent efforts. And I think Tully Hill is got the potential to certainly step into Grade 1 races. A horse that, or running those famous Cheveley Park that we used to see on the flat all the time with horses like Medici. And now they're all over, well, not all of them, but they're all in Ireland over jumps and doing really well. So Tully Hill is the one for me, but it is an open race and it's price dependent. I think they've gone very defensive on the Mullins horses. Got several options in Ballyburn, who's been impressive as well. But we know that Tully Hill's going there, and we know that he's progressive and smart.
The only time, ladies and gentlemen, you will hear Medici mentioned on a Cheltenham Festival preview. And that is the in-depth angles that we bring you here. Right, let's cement this Tully Hill position then, because there's a few going for him. Don, why are you now keen Tully Hill?
I think he's a big price, Tom. Like nobody knows. I'd say probably not even Willie Mullins knows where they're going to run. But with Mystical Power, like Mark Walsh is going to ride Mystical Power wherever he runs. And Tully Hill and Ballyburn, it would make sense to split them up because Paul Tannen could then ride both of them. And Tully Hill's only entries in the Supreme Novices, but so by a process of elimination, I think there's a good chance Tully Hill will. Well, of course Tully Hill will run here. There's a good chance Ballyburn will be the one to go to the Burying Bingham. Who knows? But that's kind of the way I'm thinking. Tully Hill, he's a classy horse. He was the Willie Mullins selected to take on A Dream to Share in the Punchestown bumper last season. He didn't get the better of him, and Ballyburn, of course, went and won another bumper at Punchestown. Tully Hill, he was beaten at 8-1 on his debut this season, and that was at a time of year at which the Willie Mullins horses they were coming on for the run kind of late November. They tend to progress from that point all through the season. He was good at Naas then next time, but he was very good the last day, as Steve said. He got out in front. Thought his jumping was good in the main. He made a mistake at the fifth last, I think. But in the last four flights, when the pace was on, I thought he was good over those. The time was good. He beat two good horses in No Flies on Him and Jagoro, and he beat them really well. And yeah, I just think that he should be a wee bit shorter than 8 points, something or thereabouts, the price that he is at the minute.
Okay, understood. And Charlie, what do you want to add to Tully Hill?
Not an awful lot, Tom. You know, I think the lads have said it all. I just was very impressed with Tully Hill the last day at Punchestown. I agree with Don's comment, which he mentioned before about Paul Townend. If they split him and Ballyburn up, it would make sense. You know, I think this horse he stays probably further than this 2 mile trip, which I don't think is a bad thing. He's fairly versatile in the way they ride him, and you definitely can win a Supreme being ridden forward, which he did last time at Punchestown. His jumping, I think Ruby said that he maybe spends a bit much time in the air, but I don't think his jumping is a factor. And so, yeah, for me, again, Tully Hill at the prices with a market that's dominated by Ballyburn looks a decent bet and good value to get this festival kicked off to the best start possible.
Okay, one shout for Firefox. I'm going to read out some comments shortly. 3 shouts for Tully Hill. Deasy, I know you're no strong opinion here, so we are skipping you, but it'll be worth the wait when you do come in. Dan, you got a couple of shouts, one at a price and one for the obvious.
Yeah, I just am coming to the idea that Ballyburn's going to run here because I just think he is a cut above every other Willie Mullins novice hurdler. I mean, the improvement he's shown on every start over hurdle has been mind-blowing. I mean, to beat the likes of Cletus Poulor and Apples of Brazil so easily in that maiden hurdle. So I know Firefox beat him first time out, but I think there are reasons for that. And then that 2-mile race, the DRF, I think is probably the strongest novice form we have on offer. Slade Still in his own right is a very likeable horse. The 3rd and 4th, I think, will run really well in the county hurdle. I just think the manner of his victories have been so impressive. I'm not entirely convinced on Tully Hill. I think Mystical Power would actually marginally prefer Tully Hill of those. But one at a bigger price of Willie Mullins, who I think is interesting. And I know Matt is very keen on the A team of Willie Mullins always being the ones to decide. But I think Mr. Giff could run a decent race at a big price here. Like, he won his maiden hurdle really impressively, really good jumping performance on that occasion. And while he does have some things to overcome in terms of the fact that he isn't one of the top A-teamers for Willie Mullins, he does have some history on his side. He's had loads of experience in France, and we've seen the likes of Vautour, Duvan, Classical Dream. They all ran in France over hurdles and then came and obviously won the Supreme. And I'm not comparing him to those because obviously I don't think he's of that level, but he has experience on his side. I love the way he jumped in his maiden hurdle. Really impressive on that occasion. I think at a big price, he could outrun his odds in place.
Some of the comments coming in: Ballyburn Cert, Ballyburn Supreme. Firefox says Brent has no chance against Ballyburn. And my favourite so far is from Peter. Welcome along, Peter. He says, who's that coming towards us in the distance? Is it Duncan Goodhue? No. Is it Phil Micheál? No. Is it Pitbull? No. It's Micheál Deasy, everybody. Yay! And what he's suggesting there is that Deasy's bald. So there we are, if anybody had missed that. We're going to come to you shortly, Deasy, on the next race. Harvey says, if Talia wins the Supreme, stick the festival in the bin. Matt, I want to ask you one question on run styles, because we've had that reference here a few times. It suits going forward in the Supreme. If Ballyburn does go to the Bearing Bingham, how do you want to be ridden in that race, or does it not matter?
Well, traditionally, they've gone very steadily in that race. Therefore, it's been about settling. It's been about having a turn of foot at the end of the race. But sooner or later, you've got to imagine that someone is going to cotton on to that and is going to say, actually, I'm much better off trying to run the finish out of these speed horses. Ballyburn, the way he's run for, if he does go for the Bearing Bingham, I'd try and make all and not worry about the potential for not staying the trip. I think he'll stay perfectly well 2-5.
Understood. Right. And Sean says only 4 favourites in the last 19 have won the Supreme, but I'd venture they were more recently, given that we've had smaller fields of late. Okay. And we move on to the next contest, which is the Arkle. Let me bring you some prices here. In fact, we'll do Marine National 3.8. Oh, I tell you, that's got to be tempting some people in. Il Était Temps 7.0, Founder 58.2, Hunter's Yarn 10.5, JPR 1 10.5, Calixios 12.0, Gaelic Warrior surely not here 14.0, Facile Vega maybe going up in trip 22.0, bigger prices thereafter. Matt, take it away. The trend.
The trend is that 11 of the last 14 renewals have been won by Willie Mullins 5, Nicky Henderson 4, Henry de Bromhead 2. 2-mile chasing is the most specialist division. Very few horses can go an Arkle gallop and jump at it, even with the more forgiving fences these days. And that specialism is extended to trainers. The only other recent winning trainer was Alan King, who was training his 3rd winner of the race with Edmonton a couple of years ago. Of those trainers, Henry's got Quilixios, potentially supplemented in the pocket. Willie will run 2 or 3. And given his experience disadvantage in such a specialist division, be some training performance if Barry Connell can turn Marine National round from the Irish Arkle flop and win this. The last Arkle winner beaten on their previous run was for Paddy de Plaster 15 years ago, and he'd been a good 2.5 lengths second to Caldine in what's now the 2-mile 5 grade 1 at DRF. So Marine National is a favourite I'm keen to take on.
I like that. That's a stat I feel you can really get your teeth into and throw out before the Arkle itself to put people off. Marine National, Donn McClean.
Yeah, I just think he's going out to a price now at which you might be interested in him. Look, it's as we discussed before, it's kind of binary. Do you forgive him his last run, and to what degree do you forgive him his last run? But just take his last run out for a second. He was the one of the outstanding novice hurdlers last season. His jumping on his seasonal debut, his chasing debut at Leopardstown at Christmas was so good. He was just effortless. He oozed class. He won with plenty in hand. He beat firm footings by 8.5 lengths. He clocked a faster time than Dyna Blue clocked in winning the Grade 1 early or later in the day. And they went fast in that race as well. Gentleman DeMay took them along. So that to me was the confirmation of what Barry Connell had been saying, that his schooling had been really good, that he could be a better chaser than hurdler, and he was such a good hurdler and progressive hurdler as well last season. So then you have his poor run at Leopardstown over Christmas. For whatever reason, it wasn't. We know that it wasn't his running. So back at Cheltenham, where he won the Supreme Novices Hurdle, probably back on better ground than the ground he encountered at the Dublin Racing Festival. It just could see him bounce. Like if he hadn't run there, he was odds on for the Arkle before he ran there. And obviously that it's a big negative against him, but I think maybe not as big a negative as the degree to which his price has been extended.
Okay, that's a shout for Marine National, and the horse that won the Arkle Trial in Ireland is the selection of Micheál Deasy. Welcome back, Deas.
Thanks, Tom. Just on Marine National, I suppose the one I'm going for is Elete Tomp, and ties in a bit with Marine National. I didn't think Marine National ran that bad the last time, but he found nothing. And with the first time tongue tie, and I would suggest that suspect maybe there's some issues with his wind or something that stopped him finishing out his race. But I think Elete Tomp, and he's probably one of my stronger fancies now for the whole festival. Thought he was brilliant the last day at Leopardstown. I thought that he travelled well, and if you're just watching the back straight there at Leopardstown, he just started jumping past Marine National. I think he threw in one kind of sketchy jump, but the rest of them he was just finding links with his jumping. He picked up so well. I know he only won by half a length, but I think he just got there just in time. It was a perfectly timed ride by Danny Mullins. I think he's improved with every run this year. He gave Gaelic Warrior a show at Limerick in what was Gaelic Warrior's absolute perfect conditions. He got cut off there at the last fence, but I think if he hadn't jumped across and had to switch out, I think he would have got a lot closer. I think he's improved massively for chasing, and I think he's a nice price at 6.6. And I'll be having a good cut off him in this. I think he's really good.
Regular listener, viewer Helen Sheridan says, I think Calixios is the value in this. Owen says, I fancy a bit of Calixios too at the price, as do a couple of people on the podcast. Steve Jones.
Yeah, Cheltenham Festival form is always very key. And this horse won the Triumph Hurdle 3 years ago. And since then, it's been running respectably behind the likes of Tihupu, and then missed 18 months before going chasing. And what he's done in general, I thought was excellent. The one blot in either side of the wing, or the winds either side of the poor run, came over 3 miles. And you clearly don't stay 3 miles in testing ground. And so it was good to see him bounce back at Naas over 2 miles when he jumped well and he travelled really well. So for a horse that was tried over 3 miles, I can't quite get my head around why he was trying 3 miles. But back to 2 miles at Naas last time, he ran out a good winner. And like I say, he jumps well, he travels strongly, but he finishes his races. My worry with Marine National is we do know how good he is. He saw that in the Supreme, and he's got festival form. But I don't want to see a horse finishing as tamely as he did on his going into Cheltenham. So I think Calixios is a much better bet, personally.
And just to confirm, Marine National did have a wind up as well in the off season. So that's the tongue tie on then last time. And yeah, it might be a concern for plenty. Dan, what do you want to add to the Calixios shout?
Yeah, not too much. I was just really impressed by that run at Nace. I know it's not Grade 1 form like the likes of Let's Tom had, but I think that race is a really solid piece of form. Safra, who was second, is a horse I have a lot of time for, and I'll get on to him when it comes to talking about some handicaps down the line. Mr. Policeman has obviously been a bit of a hype horse for this season. He was well back in third and won well next time out. And everything about that run screamed proper 2-mile chaser to me. Travelled really strongly, jumped well, quickened when asked to, and then stayed up strongly up the hill at Nace. All of that points to a good run here. Henry de Bromhead knows how to win an Arkle, and I think the fact he'll be ridden positively is also a big plus, given that normally suits this race.
All right, Charlie, big old price for this horse.
Yeah, big price. I mean, I just thought it was a trappy race. This Marine Nationale, as the boys have said, he looks a relatively big price now, but I just can't really forgive him that run in his last start. And then I think the others are all sort of around the same sort of level. And so I suppose it's whoever pitches up on the day. I mean, this horse been non-runner, no bet for me. He might not turn up, but Blood Destiny, I just thought was interesting at a massive price. He was obviously a real hype horse for his chasing debut at Nace, and he jumped brilliantly, beat Hartwood, who obviously franked that form, win the handicap off 136. And then looked to me like he was outstayed behind Spillane's Tower, who again is no bad horse. And I think this drop back in trip is exactly what he needs. He looks a very, very good jumper. He's able to ride off the front end, which Dan Overall has just rightly said is a good tactic in this race. And yeah, at the price, I just thought he was interesting from a win and place angle. And like I say, no run, no bet if he doesn't end up pitching up here.
Alex Jeffrey says the silence on Hunter's Yarn is deafening. Is he going still? Well, Matt Toombs, there was a suggestion that both he and Blood Destiny were mere possibles for the festival at the Willie Mullins Open Day.
Yeah, that's right. David Casey was on a preview the other night and said a decision has been made and that he will run. As we know, what senior members of the Closutton team say doesn't always happen. Willie decides. But I wanted to take a bit of a punt on that, Casey being right, because Hunter's Yarn has really impressed me visually. He would be 2 from 2 over fences, but for falling on the last on debut. He was set to beat Safura, more authority than Quilixios did at Nace. 41 length third in that race, battled it out, won the big novice handicap at Nace yesterday. Hunter's Yarn showed he learned from that in his next run, got a leg out when blundering 2 out back at Fairy House, still trounced Path Through by 10 lengths. And Path Through sandwiched that run with 2 good efforts at Leopardstown, firstly falling at the last one with every chance off 132 at Christmas, and then less than 3 lengths second off 136 at DRF. More forgiving fences at Cheltenham. Hopefully it'll give Hunter's Yarn a bit more margin for error. And he looks a really fast horse. So he has got to get there. He's got to take the day. He's got to prove the track suits. So he's not a rock solid proposition. But if he does take to the test, I think I might have him the most likely winner based on the visual impression he's created. So I think he's worth a punt, anti-post at a double figure price.
Okay, that is Hunter's Yarn. More positive eyes that he might rock up. We move on to the Champion Hurdle. Keep your comments coming in, read the Champion Hurdle. Somebody out there has got to be willing to take on Constitution Hill. 1.36, which is incidentally a good bit bigger than you get on a sportsbook at the moment. State Man 4.8. I'm not even going to read the rest out. Don't care. Constitution Hill. None of you seem to be taking this horse on as such. Let us know in the comments if anyone else is. My view is pretty clear, and that is on the day I think this horse will be 1.2 or shorter, and I'm very happy to be against him at that price. My reason being that he's an incredibly enthusiastic jumper. The jump he put in, I think it was 3 out at Kempton, was stunning. The jump he put in at the last at Cheltenham last year, fabulous. But I feel this horse is in danger of treading a fine line between sheer brilliant athleticism and just making an error. And, you know, he wouldn't describe him as careful. And if he makes an error here on just his second start this season, State Man is a good enough horse to have him. If he puts in a fluent round, he'll win. But I'm willing to have that on my side as much as hand on heart. I want Constitution Hill to score and to win and continue unbeaten. I think he's got a mistake in him personally. So I will be against him if he's around about 1.2 or shorter, which I think he will be on the day when some of the obvious horses don't go and we get maybe a 4-5 runner field. I'll come to you, Deasy, because you want to play the straight forecast.
I do. That's how I would play this race. I think that obviously the front two are miles clear of everything else. Constitution Hill is too short to be back, and unless you're have loads and loads and loads of money. But I think that State Man is so much clearer of the rest as well. And I think State Man has improved this year. I think he'll get closer to them. I'd be going the unders on distance betting and that. But I can see Constitution Hill coming first and State Man being beaten by maybe between 4, 5, 6 lengths. But straight forecast, you might get about 1.7, 1.8 out of it. I think it's just the two of them, and the rest of them will be 20 lengths behind them. We put this to Matt there during the week, and he said this isn't a bet he'd be following him, that State Man might get burned out chasing him home. But I still think that they should at least be 20 lengths ahead of whoever is in third. The rest of them are, handicappers. They're good horses, but they're not at the same level, these two boys. So you can bet forecast on Matchbook now. So straight forecast on Constitution Hill first and State Man to be second.
Harvey says, anybody think State Man has the ability to turn the form around without Constitution Hill making a mistake? I think no, given what everyone's put on the document. Don, do you want to add anything to this? You've put in the document you could play a handicap on State Man, adding lengths to his performance, and you've selected 9.
I think
Coming again, Don.
Yeah, sorry, Constitution Hill beat him by 9 lengths last year, so I think like Micheál, State Man will get closer to him this year than he did. State Man, he's such a classy horse. He's only, since he's joined Willie Mullins, he's only ever been beaten when he fell on his first run from, and when Constitution Hill beat him in the Champion Hurdle last year. He's a multiple Grade 1 winner. He looks like an improved horse this year. He looks better in what he's been doing this year. He's just been doing it with more authority. And I know Imperial Pass didn't run his race the last day. They tried something new, got him out in front. He didn't enjoy that at all, to the degree to which he's not even going to Cheltenham now. But State Man, he's just so easy. Just seems to do whatever Paul Tannen wants him to do. He sits in front, waits for Paul Tannen to give him a squeeze, and then he quickens up. And Paul Tannen did say very early this season that he thought he just wasn't at his best in the Champion Hurdle last year. That, okay, Constitution Hill was a better horse on the day and by quite some way, but he thought he should have been beating the other horses by more than he did. And he's 6th last year, he's 7 now. I just think if he can bring the momentum that he has from his season so far, like he's won his 3 Grade 1s this season so far, if he can bring that momentum back to Cheltenham, where he has run in a Champion Hurdle second and won a county hurdle as well, so we know that he handles the track. I can see him getting close. If Constitution Hill doesn't make a mistake, as you said, it's hard to see State Man reversing placings, but I can see him giving him a race and getting closer to him. And again, whatever run, I'd say it's going to be, obviously it'll be a small number of runners, but it's obviously the betting says it's a match between the two of them. I can see State Man giving him a race.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I only really want one response for anyone that feels strongly about it. Maybe nobody does, but does nobody think that Constitution Hill, it's not as if, and through no fault of connections, because the Fighting Fifth was originally off, and I absolutely see they shouldn't have run him, or why they didn't run him at Sandown on very heavy ground in the race. Not So Sleepy won the rearranged Fighting Fifth. Then he scoped dirty before the International, so he didn't run him. That's not their fault. But you can't hand on heart say he's had a great preparation for a Champion Hurdle, which his whole season has been. It's been one big preparation for a Champion Hurdle. Nicky Henderson admits that, right? So we can't.
No, I disagree, Tom. I disagree with that. I think that Nicky is delighted with his one-run preparation. I don't think he ever intended to go for the Beulah. Fighting Fifth was there, providing everything worked well, with the ground being good on the day, not being postponed and that sort of thing. It was Nicky's quipping about how Constitution Hill barely knows State Man, having only seen him for a minute at the start last year. That tells me that Nicky thinks he's got him in absolutely top form. So I think the point the boys have made is absolutely right. You've said, Tom, he jumped so quickly, he could always tip up like any other horse. He could not be on a going day. But I don't think the preparation is a problem at all. And providing there isn't an accident, I think he'll win easily.
Right, let's kick on to the mares. We don't have prices on screen, but I'm going to tell you that 1.6 is Lost Sea Mouth. Astro Diamond is 5.0. Echoes in Rain is 15.0. And then we do get into the bigger prices. Do you know, I haven't even previewed on the sheet what people fancy. a couple of no bets, Lossiemouth. I'm not going to bother then. But Matt and Deasy are both with Ashrow Diamond, therefore against Lossiemouth, I guess. Give me your trend, Matt, and then why Ashrow?
Trend is that since the inaugural running, every winner had run over at least 2 miles 3 over hurdles. All but one had won a hurdle over at least the Mayor's hurdle trip. And the one who hadn't was Benny Didier, who won over 2-4 over fences. That said, there isn't a record of short-priced horses with unproven stamina getting turned over either. We're just in new territory here with Lossiemouth and not having run over further than 2-1. And I just think there's too much of a gap between Lossiemouth and Ashrow Diamond in the market. Lossiemouth's 2 races at 2-1, both steadily run races. Visually, she was terrific in the Beulah. But that was a sprint against some opponents who were either out of form or didn't have conditions to suit. She might be even better over 2-4. But given that we don't know, she just looks too short. Ashrow Diamond hacked up in the Yorkshire Rose, proved her stamina, winning the Honeysuckle at Fairy House, running a solid race in the Hatton's Grace, showed lots of speed too at Doncaster. So I just think that the prices are out of line and that they'll correct themselves by the off. That gap between their prices ought to narrow. And so from an anti-post point of view, Ashrow Diamond looks like the shortener and the obvious play.
I'm just going to read that trend again, because I think when it comes to favourites like this is a really interesting one, and it leads into horses being over or under bet. And the suggestion from Matt is that Lossiemouth is over bet. Since the inaugural running, every winner had run over at least 2 miles 3 over hurdles, and all but one had won a hurdle over at least the Mayor's trip of 2 mile 3. DC.
I have very little to add to Matt's case there. He's spot on. It's a price thing. Like Ashrow Diamond is 4-1 in the books, and you can get a 7.5 a matchbook. She'll definitely go off shorter than that. She's run off the distance, and she's a very good horse. And Lossiemouth, again, you know, this the 5-year-olds, they have it's hard from in their second season sometimes, and it's just a price thing. I think Ashrow Diamond is a very good horse as well, so I'm willing to take a chance there at 7.5.
Keep your questions, your generic festival questions coming in. Gus has talked about Willie Mullins against British runners. I'll make a note of them with generic festival questions and try, if we have time, and bring them in at the end. So keep those coming in. If you have any sort of non-race specific festival questions, please do those. Any other Tuesday bets between the Ultima, the Boodles, the National Hunt Chase, etc.? I will come to you, Charlie, and in fact, we'll get all of our Ultima selections. There's a few here. So, Charlie, first of all.
Yeah, just Shamblu for the skeletons in the Ultima. When I was on with you, Matt and Tom, you, Matt and Don the other day, I made a case for him. I think he's obviously had his problems. This started off this season poorly, but is working his way back to form. A couple of good runs around Ascot over 2-3, and then 3 miles the last day. He's also got a back class, Grade 1 winning novice chaser. He's £9 lower than his peak, and he just wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world if he went and ran a massive race in the Ultima. And I think he's 21, 23.0, and yeah, I thought he's quite an attractive bet, to be honest.
I'm putting up Giovinco in the Ultima, who may not go because, of course, they've got another live chance in that. I just think it's the race that I would want him to go for, as opposed to one of the graded races. I think a handicap over this distance off his mark would be absolutely spot on. Giovinco for last year's winning connections. As I say, I'm not sure he's going to go, so there's no point in doing it now. But if he lined up in the race, he would seriously interest me. Giovinco, I think he's got a lovely profile for the race. Another Ultima shout from you, Steve, and then you can kick on with anything else you fancy.
Yeah, Kim Bailey's got a couple of chances, so I would imagine he'd run them both. They're both owned by different people. And Chianti Classico is his most fancied one in this. But I thought Trelawney had an excellent chance. This is a horse who was running over 2.5 mostly over fences so far, but he did win over 2.7 over hurdles on bad ground in a handicap the day after Cheltenham last year. And his third, so he made his chase debut at Carlisle and won, and his third behind Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawning, finishing front of Krabilly. I thought I was exceptionally good form in December at Cheltenham, off level weights, getting 3 off Grey Dawning and giving weight to Krabilly at level weights with the winner, who is hot favourite for the Grade 1, the 2.5. And he would have been even closer had he not missed out it was either the second last or the last. And then stayed on again like he's going to love the return to 3 miles. And a nice couple of runs in small fields since then won't have suited him, over 2-3. And going back up to 3 miles, I think he's got an excellent chance. I'd have him over Bailey's other one. And 17.0 or thereabouts. Grand. And the other one, look, he might not run. He's Willie Mullins' horse in the National Hunt Chase. But Manila Kakuna, since he was second in the Albert Bartlett and then second, it punches down to the nice guy. I've always thought he'd be ideal for this. Whether he runs or not, I'm not sure. But monster price, you can take a chance.
Matt, one in the same race, National Hunt Chase.
Yeah, Salvador Ziggy. Opposition's melting away a bit here. Likes of Nick Rocket, 3-card Bragg, Flooring Porter may not run now. Good festival form when second in the Potemps off 147. Had the classic Elliott prep for this, getting his chasing experience in early. Then running in a big autumn handicap, he was second off 150 in the Kerry National. So it's a bit similar to sort of Raven Hill, who was second off 137 in that race. Tiger Roll won the Munster National, so on. And he's just got the perfect Gordon Elliott profile for this, and it could cut up.
I like the Sean stat, only 2 Irish train winners since 1967 in the Ultima. There's also another ludicrous one about first-time headgear. You can get all of those and more in our handicap preview, which is going to be out next Wednesday at 7:15. National Hunt Chase as well for you, Dan, and a few others, to take us through them.
Yeah, I love an any other bet section. So, like Matt, I'm a big fan of Salvador Ziggy, just has a rock-solid profile for this race. Already rated 153. Only in recent years has Gaillard de Menil had a higher rating going into the race, and he was a second season novice who'd won a Grade 1. So I think he'll just be bang there. And while he may be vulnerable to likes of NBC Gardens if he is top class, I'm not exactly convinced he is. In the Ultima, I think Chianti Classico just has a lovely profile for the race. British trained novice hurdler, novice chaser rather. Loved his chasing debut at Chepstow. Looked a complete natural. Then had a couple of interesting runs. One to the small field at Ascot, which I don't think suited. And we last saw him at Kempton, where raced really wide that day. Good ground. The Kid Bailey yard were really out of form. Still finished a really good second when conditions wouldn't have suited. Clearly had this race in mind for some time. I think Kim Bailey can go one better than he did with Happy Go Lucky, and Chianti Classico has quite a similar profile to him. And then one in the Fred Winter at a big price. I would say Partir for Martin Brazel. And it was the first horse on my Fred Winter radar when he finished second in his hurdling debut. Now, that form isn't exactly standout, and he's had a few hit and misses here. But you go to that Grade 2 over Christmas, which is undeniably a key piece of form. So you've had like Cargazy, who came out and won at the DRF. They were all kind of bunched up amongst each other that day. And I would say Partir was anchored dead last and snuck into the race from off the pace, finished in and around the likes of Miss Manzour, Eagle Fang, Cossack Chak, and Batman Jirac. And arguably given the more conservative ride out of all of them. And all of those four mentioned are far shorter in the betting than I say Partir is. He's currently 34.0. And we've seen Martin Brazel in these big handicaps, how efficient he's been at targeting them. He's been so unlucky to see an Epic Song and Fast or Slow get narrowly beaten last year. I think he's just a master of getting these horses right. So at 34.0, I think he could be a real big player. And it wouldn't surprise me if he gets quite well backed come the day as well.
Don.
I'd like to see him run in the National Hunt Chase. He's obviously got the option of the stairs hurdle again, but I think he's there's a lot to like about him as a staying chaser. He won on his chasing debut at Cheltenham at the October meeting when he jumped really, really well. He beat Broadway Boy pretty easily that day by more in hand than the 2.5 length winning margin. He's run twice over fences since then. He's had excuses for both. His first of the two was in the Florida Pearl Chase when he was going right-handed for the first time in ages. We know that he jumps to his left, and he was annoyed by a loose horse that day. And then in the Neville Hotels Chase at Leopardstown over Christmas, he was around the inside, probably on the worst of the ground, because that's the way he goes. He goes to his left. He's a proven Cheltenham horse. He's a dual stairs hurdle winner, and he's got that. He's not as good over fences as he is over hurdles and on official ratings, but he's still 151 rated chaser. And that's way up there, as the lads were saying, about ratings for this race. So, and we know that he goes well at Cheltenham. He jumps to Cheltenham fence as well. I think the step up and trip as well to 3 miles 6, that'll be a positive for him. So I hope he goes here, because I think he's a big chance if he does.
That is Flooring Porter in the National Hunt Chase, and Deasy, another one in that race for you.
Matt's just burst my balloon there by saying 3-car Bragg might not run in the 4 miler or the National Chase, but I think it would really suit him. I think he seems like a horse that needs more than 3 miles. He's constantly being touched off. After running a massive race, I think the extra few furlongs would suit him. He's a Doris there. He's just a good solid horse. But I haven't seen the news that he might run in it. But if he doesn't today, I'd be having a nice win place betting him, because I think he just has a good profile for the race.
Okay, and we move on to best Tuesday lays. No need for an explanation. We've pretty much given them. For me, Constitution Hill in the Champion Hurdle if 1.2 or shorter, and Marine Nationale 3.5 or shorter in the Arkle. Matt?
Lossiemouth in the Mare's Hurdle.
Which you agree with, Deasy?
I do.
There you go. And I just might as well stop everyone saying anything. Apologies. Charlie?
Yeah, Marine Nationale in the Arkle for me as well. I think that I just can't, like I say, can't forget that run the last day, and I think they're all relatively similar levels of ability, and he's too short.
Best bets then for the first day of the Cheltenham Festival. Mine is Calixios in the Arkle. Steve?
Mine is... What is mine? Trelawney, is it?
No, mate, it's the same. But don't worry, it's great having you.
Calixios,
that's fine. But we've seen you eating dinner, so that's the most important thing. Matt, you.
It's Firefox in the Supreme.
Good. Don? That was Tully Hill. Tully Hill in the Supreme. Which, Charlie, you?
Yeah, Tully Hill for me as well.
I feel like this section's gone really well. I'm really proud of it. Dan?
Smashing this.
Yeah, Dan?
Chianti Classico in the Ultima.
DC?
Il était temps.
Good. Steve, do you want another go? Steve?
I can give you a different horse if you like.
Right, Wednesday. We move on to Wednesday. This is for the Bearing Bingham. Give me your trend, Matt Toombs.
Yeah, possibly my favourite start of the whole festival, which I bring out every year. Since 1997, Grade 1 winning hurdlers at 2 miles, 9 from 17, 85% profit. Grade 1 winning hurdlers at 2 miles 4 or further, 3 from 26, 71% loss. The vibes over the last day or two, Ballyburn may be going to go for the Supreme. But if he lines up here, 2 mile Grade 1 winning hurdle form is obviously perfect. It's tempting to swim against the tide, but as some of us are going to do. But I am worried now that the Supreme does look the more likely target.
Fine. And if Ballyburn does go for the Supreme, that is because Mystical Power is coming here. Is that the obvious thing, Matt, or is that not necessarily?
I think it really matters who the A-teamers are. Ballyburn's clearly going to be one. It depends who the other one is. If Mystical Power is another A-teamer, then they could go in either race. But if, say, it's Il Atlantique, then Ballyburn's clearly going to go in the Supreme. If it's Tully Hill, then Ballyburn's clearly going to go in the Bearing Bingham. All up in the air still, I think.
Okay. Well, just come in with your selection, because this is a slight curveball.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty open race if he doesn't run. And Handstands doesn't have any 2 mile form, actually, let alone the Grade 1 form around the minimum distance. But he does tie in with the Formby winner, Django Bailly, having beaten him in a steadily run Sydney Banks. Receipt of £5 at Huntingdon, but value for more than the 1.5 length victory, seemingly idling on the run-in, winning cosily. It was more of a test of speed than stamina at the trip. Handstand looked to have a lot more speed when they started sprinting than Django Bailly did. So I'm hopefully he'll have the right turn of foot for this. He was green on his first 2 starts over hurdles, and this was just his 4th career start, and he looked much more professional. He only made his career debut in a point on the 28th of October. So I'm hopeful he's on a steep upward curve, more so than some of those who were running in bumpers last year and even points the year before. The Sydney Banks was on soft ground. He's by getaway over King's Theatre mare, so could improve a fair bit if he gets a sound surface. And Ben Pauling is one of my go-to trainers at the festival. Learned his trade with Nicky Henderson, especially about picking horses at Cheltenham. He's 3 from 49 at the festival so far, 20% profit. He won this 7 years ago with a 15.0 shot Willoughby Court. His horses are constantly under bet at the meeting. So it looks like cutting up. And if Ballyburn doesn't run, it could be a weak renewal. I think he's a decent each way shout.
Okay. 16.5 handstands, 3.85 for Ballyburn. He's odds on, non-runner, no bet with some sports books. So Charlie, if you do think he's gonna line up here, then a bit of a no-brainer, surely. 3.85 Slade Steel, 5.3.
Completely, yeah. If he is going to line up here, it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, as I'm a Tully Hill fan, it would be the obvious thing, and it'd be what I would do. But as we know, Willie Mullins, and who are we to kind of question his judgment? But I think Ballyburn's an outstanding horse. I mean, look, if he runs in the Supreme, he'd probably win that as well. But I think this is the obvious race for him, and yeah, I just think he's the best novice hurdler running at the entire meeting.
Don?
I like Slade Steel, Tom. I think he's been kind of coming along nicely in typical Henry Bromhead style for a novice hurdler. He beat King of Kingsfield really well in his maiden hurdle, and he stayed 2.5 miles well in the Grade 2 Navan novice hurdle back in early December. He beat Lecky Watson that day, and that race that form has worked out pretty well. He had no answer to Ballyburn the last day. That was over 2 miles. Would the step up and trip be enough of a positive for him to allow him to get closer to Ballyburn? I think so, although Ballyburn, obviously, he's got 2.5 mile form as well. But at the Dublin Racing Festival, the two novice, the Grade 1 novice hurdles, obviously, the 2 mile race and the 2 mile 6. If there'd been a 2.25 mile race, I suspect he'd run there as there used to be. I suspect he'd run in that. But he's a horse who gets further than 2 miles. Even when he beat King of Kingsfield over 2 miles at Naas, it wasn't until going over the second last when his stamina kicked in that he got the better of him. And King of Kingsfield is a talented horse, as we know. Subsequently, he finished second in a Royal Bond hurdle. So you can see Slade Steel improving again. Obviously, it would be a big worry if Ballyburn were to run here, but I think Slade Steel could be best of the rest and might get a bit closer to Ballyburn as well over the longer trip.
Dan, you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the idea that Ballyburn won't run here. I think Ballyburn is the standout novice hurdler of this. And to be honest, I've been trying to maybe oppose Slade Steel if he is the favourite. But every time I now keep looking at the race, I just come back to the idea that he is the most likely winner in a world where Ballyburn runs in the Supreme. One thing I really do like about Slade Steel is his attitude. Like, he hasn't always made it look easy, but he's dug down deep to win. He did it on his maiden hurdle, then he did it at Navan as well. He didn't really have a chance against Ballyburn, but the way they pulled clear of King of Kingsfield and Absurd, who are probably going to head the market for the county hurdle, suggests to me that's a really strong piece of form. I think 2.5 miles is definitely going to suit him better than 2 miles. I think he's just a really rock-solid proposition for this race if Ballyburn doesn't run.
All righty, that's the bearing Bingham, the Brown Advisory trend, Matt Toombs.
So from something I talk about every year to something a bit new that's different. In the past, I've talked about the negative in this race of having spent 2 full seasons over hurdles, especially running an open graded 3 mile hurdles, the old more of that time for Rupert Grand Cru, those stairs hurdle horses. Trainers seem to have cottoned on to that better now. So a trend on a similar theme is horses that went chasing by the end of their second season racing, 6 from 36 this century, 171% profit. Horses that waited and went chasing in their 4th or later season racing, 2 from 73, 91% loss. So whilst every horse needs treating individually, I'm a big believer that chasers, especially staying chasers, benefit from going over fences early in their careers. Too many spend too long in bumpers or over hurdles, getting miles in their legs and their heads before taking on the challenge of chasing.
Okay, Deasy, why don't you like Factor File?
I think he is too short. I think there's an awful lot of hype built into his price because Willie said he could go all the way to the top. The race he beat Zana here in, I thought his jumping wasn't of a horse that is going to win a Gold Cup in the next couple of years. I just didn't like the way he went through the race. No, I know he won easily. He probably has an engine, but I can see him trying in a few bad jumps, and I can see someone like Broadway Boy going out in front who has done it at the course and at distance already, going out in front and just getting away from them and putting them under pressure and behind them. And that's basically it. I think he's far too short for this. I think there are other decent enough horses in it, like Stay Away Fame, Anti-Star. It'd be hard to pick between. I might put up Grey Dawning for this in a preview there a few weeks ago. I think he'd have a right chance as well, but he does kind of talk. He'll go for the Turners now. If he ran in this, I'd be backing him. But I just think that there's a bit of depth to it. And I would rather have an evens bet on the field rather than an evens bet on Factified.
Okay, we go the prices and we go all the way down to Broadway Boy. I'll show you what he is. Right at the top of the betting, 2.1 for Factor File, 4.8 Stairway Fay, 55.0 for Broadway Boy, Dan.
Oh, yes, my favourite. And maybe that drift is maybe indicative that maybe they're thinking National Hunt Chase. But it wouldn't be Nigel Twiston-Davies like to do that, because I think they're going to look at this race and it's going to be a small field. Like, we're going to have maybe 4 or 5 in this. Obviously, we've got the top 2 in the market, Monty Star. I think Sander Clegane will run here. But other than that, you really are struggling for runners. And Broadway Boy, I think his run style is just made for this race. And obviously, you have to forgive Warwick. I think a combination of factors there. I think he was found to have ulcers in his stomach afterwards. And also, it was his 4th race in a fairly short period of time. And he had a couple of hard races before that. But you go back before that, you're talking about a really upwardly mobile novice chaser whose run style is made for this kind of race. Because he won that listed race by 20 lengths. Then won that handicap on the new course, 100 grand handicap beating 300 through 5. Obviously, franked that form. Protector was back in 3rd. And what's impressive about that is he did that despite making 3 terrible consecutive errors at a crucial stage in the race. Now, that would have knocked most horses out of that race, and he rallied back to win quite comfortably. I think he's a seriously likeable horse. He has a great attitude, and given it's a small field, he'll go from the front. We saw Sam Twiston-Davies make all in this race last year. I think that price, if this is his target, is almost an insult. And I just hope they go for this rather than National Hunt Chase, because I do think he's got a live chance at a big price.
Matt, do you want to add anything? That's your selection as well. You don't have to.
The only thing I want to do is just emphasise he is in his 2nd season, so he meets that trend. He's the only one in the race, other than a rank outside of Jamaica, who does. So he's had the perfect blend of experience. He's had 5 chase starts, so plenty of chasing experience, but open to more overall improvement as a racehorse than some of his opponents who've been running in points and bumpers and over hurdles.
Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, this, I think I decided I was going to put up the one that I think has a best chance of winning this race if he runs, and it's Grey Dawning. I mean, I was actually speaking to Dan earlier on, and I mean, he just said he'd like the ground to be very soft, and it makes the decision easy for him, and he'd run the turners because maybe he thinks there's less strength in that race. But I think this race presents his optimum conditions. I think he's better at 3 miles. I think he's bold jumping. So he was very good against Apple Away the last day around Warwick. And again, I suppose it's a no runner, no bet. But yeah, this is the race I'd like to see him turn up in. And like I say, when I factor in all his attributes, I think it's the trip that will see him at his best moving forward in his career. Now, whether that's going to be where he turns up at the festival in 2 weeks' time, we're yet to see. But I got the impression of Dan it wasn't a done deal, and it was very much going to be ground related. So we'll wait and see what the forecast does.
Okay, Sean Drage agrees. Alan Keane and El Sheen are with Monty Star, Steve.
Yeah, me too. And I like that stat from Matt about the horses that stay too long over hurdles, because Monty Star only had 3 runs over hurdles. And he's looked a natural over fences. He beat 3-card Bragg last time, jumping really well. That was only his 2nd start. And when you consider his pedigree, it's no surprise, because his half-brother, is it his half-brother? Yeah, half-brother Monolly was 2nd in this. I think it was in that race when Champ came and mugged them all, wasn't it? But yeah, he's got the pedigree. He's unexposed. He stays really well. He jumps well. And that's all you need in a race like this.
Don?
Yeah, Monty Star as well for me, Tom. Just think he's, again, another typical Henry de Bromhead improver going over fences. He was a really good staying novice hurdler last season. He won the Grade 3 at Clonmel before going to Cheltenham. He was pulled up in the Albert Bartlett hurdle, but he didn't have an ideal preparation for it. The race was probably quite quick after his win at Clonmel, and I think Black Lion and Boston's Angel were both pulled up in an Albert Bartlett before coming on to win this. His jumping, as Steve said, is really, really good. He finished 3rd behind Corbett's Cross and 3-card Bragg in one of the hottest beginners chases run this season. He had Nick Rocket behind him that day, and then against 3-card Bragg at Punchestown last time. His jumping was really good. He just sat in behind. Rachel Blackmore was able to give him a breather every time he jumped the fence. He was making ground on 3-card Bragg at pretty much every fence. He won really well. And coming on here, as Steve said, his half-brother was 2nd in this race before Monolly. he stayed the 3 miles on heavy ground the last day, punches down well, and yeah, I can see him stepping forward again.
Okay, the Champion Chase is up next. This is going to be pretty quick. We'll have a look at prices, and then I'll bring in the stat, because I think that's semi-important to read the stat for the Champion Chase. But unsurprisingly, 165 El Fabiolo, John Bond 4.8, Edward Stone 11.0. Matt, what's the stat? What's the trend?
Arkle winners this century in the next season's Champion Chase, 7 from 13, 21 point, 164% profit. It's an obvious factor. The only real surprise is it's so under bet, and I think El Fabiolo is a very good favourite here.
Is he a good price, Matt?
I think he's a fair price. If you were talking about whether you want to back him anti-post, I wouldn't, because unless John Bond gets scratched, I don't think he's going to shorten. I'm expecting most, if not all, of the other credible challengers to show up. So I'll probably wait on the day, have a look, and see whether I want to back him. I don't want to back him at the moment.
Okay, everyone has put no bet but El Fabiolo, barring Don and Charlie. I mean, Don, do you make him a bet at that price, or is it a sit on your hands job?
Well, generally, I don't really bet odds on, but if there was an odds on shot that you were having to think about backing, then El Fabiolo 1.65. Like I think he's just a superior horse to John Bond. I was trying to make a case for Edwardson out in front. Not, he probably wouldn't even get his own way out in front with the front runners that are in there. Gentleman Domain, Elixir de Nuts, and Editor If they all run. Fernie Hollow throw a wee bit of spanner into the mix yesterday, but it looks like he's not going to go there. Willie Mullins, 17 days is just not a long enough turnaround for Willie Mullins to allow a horse to take a chance generally in a championship race. And El Fabiolo, I know he has a mistake in it, but he never looks like falling, and it doesn't seem to take anything out of him either. And he beat John Bond easily in the Arkle last year. It looks like he's gone forward again this season. He might be even superior to John Bond by a greater degree this year than he was last year. And yeah, I think he deserves to be odds on. You can easily argue that he should be shorter than 1.65. Okay,
Charlie, if he's a no bet for you at that price, just say no bet. That's fine, unless you fancy him.
Yeah, sorry, I should have put down no bet. I mean, I actually think more interested in John Bond without the favourite. It'd be a shade of odds on, and I'd actually like that more than backing El Fabiolo, because I think John Bond is much better than the rest of these, just not as good as El Fabiolo.
Okie dokie. Moving on to any other bets, the likes of the Coral Cup, the Cross Country, the Grand Annual, and the Bumper. I'll go first with Micheál in the Coral Cup, who ran a really good race in the boys' race last year. I hope he goes for this race. I think it'll suit him a bit better. He's a few pounds lower. And Frero Bamboo, who I put up for the wrong race last year because he doesn't stay the plate trip. I actually think the Grand Annual would suit him ideally if he runs at 26.0. Don, another bet for us on the Wednesday.
Yeah, Madara. I like Madara. I've actually backed him for the plate, and I think he might. It looks like he might go here instead. You can see the argument for the plate. He does stay 2.5 miles. He's got 2.5 mile form in France, but his form over 2 miles this season. He's just been continually progressive. Even his first couple of runs when he arrived for Sophie Leach, they were better than the finishing position suggested. Then he won well at Cheltenham in December. He came to Leopardstown last time at the Dublin Racing Festival, and he was so good in winning. He travelled like the most likely winner from a long way out. He quickened up well, and the solidity in the horses who chased him home in Pat Theroux and Solness. So he got a £10 hike for that, but he's only a 5-year-old. He's still improving. And yeah, Grand Annual or play wherever he goes. I think he's a really interesting horse, and he seems to be a decent price as well.
Steve, one for the Grand Annual, named after me.
One for the Grand Annual, but not named after you. Well, it is Tom, but you're not very mighty. But this is my best bet of the week at the prices, Mighty Tom in the Grand Annual. A horse that has been desperate for a fast run race, and over fences in 3 starts, he hasn't got it. He went to Cheltenham, I think, for a bit of experience. He was 3rd of 4 in that race where JPR won. Was unseated at the last when he was going to win, and it wasn't all that far away, but he was just held up at the back in a race run at an ordinary gallop, and again last time behind Zanaya, never in it. I think they've been lining this one up, and I think it's interesting that it'll get the sort of rating that several horses have won this race off in recent years. So Mighty Tom at 30.4.0, I think it's a really good bet.
Okay, and Charlie, one for the Coral Cup, who I thought was interesting too.
Yeah, Doddy the Great in the Coral Cup. He's been, after a really long layoff, has shown some decent form this year. I thought his fourth, the last day in the Betfair at Newbury, was screaming out that he's ready for a step up in trip. His mark's been left unchanged, and he's a horse of relatively low mileage that I'm sure that there's no reason to think there isn't more improvement in him. And Henderson has a pretty good record in this race. So yeah, Doddy the Great and that. And then the other one would be a big price is Royal Infantry in the bumper. He's unbeaten for Dan Skelton. Won a listed bumper the last day at Newbury. And yeah, he's just a really, really likeable horse. Hit the line strong at Newbury after travelling well. And, the race will be dominated by Willie Mullins and Irish trained horses. So he'll be missed, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him running a big race. And like I say, he'll be a massive place option.
Dan, you got one in the bumper?
Yeah, I do. One of the bumper, I think, probably has the best bumper form on offer now that Jeroboam Micheál is unfortunately not running. That's You Ought to Know. I think he's still being underestimated by the market. I thought that was a really good effort in second, defying about 6-month absence to give weight away to the first and third. He finished ahead of Redemption Day. And I don't think he necessarily had the race run to suit on that occasion. Didn't get the best position early, but stayed on really well. I do think that is the best form currently on offer. So I think he's certain to be bang there or thereabouts. And I think he's being underestimated by the market currently. And then in the Grand Annual, I think Calico is just a really rock solid proposition. So banging on the door this season. I think it's been unlucky in a few handicaps and hasn't really had the races run to suit because he's been ridden too aggressively, kicked for home a bit too soon. He set the race up for others on a few occasions now. I do think his prominent run style is a benefit in the Grand Annual, especially on the old course, but I'm hoping now they're riding with a bit more restraint, don't necessarily go too aggressive, but obviously good course form. Still isn't overly exposed in these races, and he's kind of the old school Grand Annual winner in that he hasn't won a race this season, so hasn't been overly unduly hard on his mark, and I do think he's capable of winning a race from his current mark, and just seems a really rock solid win and place proposition.
And finally, one in the Grand Annual for Deasy.
Yeah, this is a price thing. I think it's Triple Trade. Joe Tizard's horse. He has run twice on the old course this season. He finished second first time out to Dancing on My Own, and then he beat Calico the next time. No, I couldn't say he's well handicapped. He's up 9 pounds since the start of the season, but he's out at just 34.0 available on him. The race in November meeting has thrown up good horses over the last few years. Bondora won it. He ran a cracker in the Grand Annual at the end of the season. We ran one of the Sky last year. The editor of the Jeet. It's just a good trial. Again, he's running off 138. He's not going to be near the top of the weight, and I can see him hitting the frame at a big price.
Helen says, surely Doddy the Great doesn't get in. So I was looking last year. Sorry, Harvey said that. Surely doesn't get in. 134 got in last year. He's 132. That's bottom. Matt, have you got anything on the Coral to hand or not? Don't worry if you don't.
I think it was 133 last year, wasn't it? It's bounced around a bit in recent years, so I should think he'll be right on the bubble.
Okay, thank you very much. Best lays then. I tell you what, DC, Charlie, myself, and Matt. Factor file. That's it. Laying factor file in the Brown Advisory. Best Wednesday bet. I've gone for Ballyburn in the Bear in Bingham. Now convinced he's not going to run, but if he's there, he would be my best bet. But there you go. So make of that what you will. Matt Toonham's your best bet.
Handstands.
In the very same race. Don.
Yeah, Monty Starr in the Brown Advisory.
Steve.
Mighty Tom Grand Annual best bet of the week on prices.
Charlie Poste.
Again, every chance mine won't pitch up, but Grey Dawning in the Brown Advisory.
Dan.
I'll go with You Ought to Know in the bumper.
And you.
Lay Factified in the Brown Advisory.
Yeah, good. Just make it up as you go along. You can't do that. It's the best bet, but don't worry about it. It's rewriting the rule. But we missed you. Moving on to Thursday, the Turners. The last of the Novice Chases to preview. What's the trend, Matt?
The trend is that runners from the previous year's Bearing Bingham, 6 from 10, big profits from that. And they finished 06101p in the Bearing Bingham. So very different results over hurdles. Gaelic Warrior, who was second, and American Mike, who was seventh, are both still in this. And it's very hard to know what's going to turn up here.
Ginny's Destiny 4.1, Grey Dawning 5.7, Facile Vega 5.8, Iroko 7.8, 8.2, Gaelic Warrior. God, it's hard to know what's going to rock up. American Mike 23, Factifel 21, and so on and so forth. I did stick one in here, which is Facile Vega. I think he's made for this trip. I would love it if he ran in this race, for all that they seem to be obsessed with him over 2 miles. But if he rocked up in this, I would be absolutely all over him at the price. I think he's perfect for a middle distance. And I think Ruby Walsh agrees as well. But it depends what Willie Mullins does. Don.
Yeah, I think the disparity between Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawning is a wee bit greater than it should be. I know Grey Dawning also has the option of the brand advisory, but like he probably would have beaten Ginny's Destiny at Cheltenham in December had he not made a really bad mistake at the second last fence. Like he did, as Charlie said earlier, did really well to get back at Ginny's Destiny. Like he didn't get as close as he did, and then he went to Warwick last time for the Hampton Chase. And okay, the race was run to suit with Broadway Boy and Apple away, taking each other on, but he travelled really well through the race and he quickened up smartly. I know that was over 3 miles and he does stay that trip, but a strongly run 2.5 miles should suit him well. He's got form at the track as well. And yeah, I think he's an improving horse. He's rated higher than Ginny's Destiny. Ginny's Destiny is a shorter price than him. There's not much between them, and they're running the last day in December. But I think Grey Dawning is a coming horse when he comes into the race on a high as well.
Dees, what do you want to add?
Nothing. Just that it's amazing that the Brits might have the top 2 in the market in a novice race at Cheltenham. It's a good news story for you this year. Grey Dawning, I think, is a brilliant horse. Winning Warwick last time was one of the best novice performances I've seen all season, and I think he has a right chance in this. And I'd agree with you on Facile Vega. He should have been stepped up a long time ago, and he will go close in this as well. But Grey Dawning was my best bet.
Okay, completing the Grey Dawning shout, Matt Toombs.
Yeah, I'd agree with what the lads said. I think Dan's been talking about the ground being the determinant. I think it's the opposition. I think he's going to see Factor Far, Stay Away Faye and Monty Star in the Broadway, and then see Ginny's Destiny as favourite for this, and he won't be able to resist it. For those who want to throw a few coins at an unlikely runner at a 3-figure price, I'd have found a 50, I think it's about 130, favourite for this if he ran. Now, he's a much less likely runner because Gordon has said it's the Arkle, generally a man who sticks to his plan. But to my eye, he looked to get done for toe by Elite Tomp in the Irish Arkle. And dropping back just over a furlong would look to be against him. He jumps right, so you'd think the turners on the less turning new course would suit him better than having to jump at Arkle pace on the old course. Gordon did leave him in the turners, unlike Firefox, who he scratched in the bearing Bingham. So whilst I haven't heard anything to say he's changed his mind, I wonder if he has got half an eye on this racing in case it falls apart. So a back Grey Dawning, just have a few coins on Founder 50 and hope one of them shows up.
Yeah, and somebody wants to back at 140.0. So there you are. It's probably you, Matt, on the exchange. Obviously different to non-runner, no bet sports bet prices. But if oh, I just unplugged my microphone. Well worth heading to the Matchbook exchange. Who else have we got? A couple of big prices going up off the back of Charlie's shout, Ginny's Destiny.
Yeah, I like Ginny's Destiny in this. Obviously won the same novice handicap chase as Stage Star did en route to this last year. And I agree with the lads that there's every chance Grey Dawning might have beat him at Cheltenham on his penultimate start. But, I think he came forward again to win that novice handicap off 147. And he's just a rock solid horse. He's a prominent racer, which again, I don't think is any bad thing in this contest. He's a very sound jumper. And, if Grey Dawning pitches up here, it's probably, there's very little between them. But just over this trip with this horse continuing to progress, I would marginally favour him over Grey Dawning. And again, Matt's comment about Dan maybe avoiding Factor File is probably justified. So maybe it won't come down to ground. Maybe it'll be a fact that he's shifting away from Factor File. But either way, I'd still be with Ginny's Destiny over this trip.
Couple of big prices. First of all, from Steve.
Yeah, if Giovinco decides to go this way, I think would have a decent chance. Everyone got excited about Stay Away Faye earlier in the season. That's gone a bit cool. I don't quite know why people are cool on Stay Away Faye for any race. But anyway, Giovinco put it up to Stay Away Faye at Sandown. It was just outstayed. Seemed to have the measure of that one for much of the race until the run-in at Sandown. And since then, pulled up behind Ile Francais at Kempton. Well, Ile Francais would be about 10s on for this race if he was coming over from France. And last time warmed up at Newcastle by beating one other runner. I think this is a classy horse. I think he's got the gears for 2.5. I think that'd be ideal, a decent run at 2.5. So take a chance, Giovinco.
Okay, someone has taken 140 about Founder.
Moving markets. Love it.
Lovely, yeah. I mean, seeing as we know our producer is currently on the site, it's blatantly him. Right, yeah. It's obvious. Who's the other big one? Dan, Jello.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, Tom. This race, again, like the Brown Viger, has a lot of potential to cut up. So that kind of leads me to looking at horses at a bigger price. And I think Jello, for all that he hasn't got a flashy profile, hasn't actually done anything wrong over fences if you really look at it. Won his first 3, including beating Master Chewy on his Chase debut, who was already race fit. I see Master Chewy's gone on to frank that form pretty impressively. Won a week grade 2 at Ascot, beating Can Do Kid. I'm not going to say that's form good enough to win a grade 1 at Cheltenham, because it isn't, but I was impressed with the way he did it. Went from the front on that occasion, jumped really well. He's a really nimble and accurate jumper, which I like to see. And then obviously went to Lingfield, where he was just taken out at the first, and that fall was not really a fall. We had nothing he could have done about that. And then went to the Scilly Isles in a race that, when it was previewed, the idea was 4 of the 5 were all front runners, Jello included. You could see a real pace collapse. But nothing wanted to get near Nickelback, who obviously went on to make all and did so really impressively. But Jello was ridden with extreme restraint on that occasion, really out the back, snuck into the race, didn't have any chance of really closing on Nickelback, who obviously just got a brilliant ride on quick ground and was never coming back to them. But Hermes Allen obviously tragically fell at the second last, but I think Jello is getting the better of him. And I think all things being considered, I think if Hermes Allen was in Jello shoes, I think he'd be a fair shade shorter. I think realistically, that run can be great upgraded based on the way it panned out tactically, and also the fact that the yard weren't in great form. And he won't be popular because he was rated 128 at the start of his Chase career and didn't have top-class hurdles form. But the exact same was said of Lompresse. And obviously we know what he did. And while I'm not saying he's up to that level, I think in a race that could cut up at a big prize, he's worth having a little bit of money on right now.
Moving on to the Ryanair Chase. We'll have a look at the top of the betting whilst Matt tells you the trend.
In the Grade 1 renewals, the front 2 in the SP market, 12 from 35, 45% profit. From an anti-post point of view, especially this year, and there's still plenty of uncertainty about what's going to run, we want a horse that will shorten into the front of the SP market.
4.4 Banbridge, Embois Allen, 5.8 Stage Star, 6.4. This is the Matchbook Preview Team Steam race. I won't come to everyone on Banbridge. Steve and Dan, I'm going to let you fight it out between you if that's okay. Steve, why Banbridge?
Just the best horse who's got a good record in Britain. And I think as he's got older, as a lot of horses do, their feet grow and they cope with soft ground better. So I think he's bomb-proof.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you just had to be really impressed by the way he won last day at Ascot. He had every reason not to be as impressive that occasion. Obviously, first run of the season, and the others are race fit. But the manner in which he did it, I thought was really impressive. Clearly, a horse who's still far from exposed. Rather. Obviously, he races over 2 miles a lot of the time as well, so he doesn't lack for speed. But clearly, this trip is more preferable for him, given he won a Martin Pipe previously. I think he's the clear favourite on this and would be the most likely winner. Maybe you wouldn't want the ground to be extreme. I think good to soft in place would be the worst you'd want to see it for him. And if it was softer, he would probably drift and they may not run him. But if he does run there and the conditions are in his favour, I think he'll take a lot of beating here.
And you have been the first Brit to say the last day. Congratulations.
Landed.
Excellent, landed.
I'm blending in.
Hopefully someone else can say from the back of the last shortly, and then we'll have completed the lot of them. I'm going to remind you about the competition, which is a £25 free Cheltenham bet competition. And that is for every 50 likes and comments. So like the video, comment what you like. Doesn't have to be live. You can be doing this in a week's time, whatever you like. And £25 free bet will come one of your ways. That's for every 50 likes and comments. So please do that. We're currently on 42 likes, so we need a few more. But that will happen as we progress. So keep them coming in, likes and comments. That's what we need. Okay, we've done Banbridge. One at a bigger price, isn't there? Who's our bigger price merchant in this race?
Me.
Am I thinking? Yes, you are. Yes, sorry, DC. Go on. Fugitive.
This horse will be staying on from the back of the last. I like Fugitive. I think that this year he has he was a very solid handicapper for the last 3 years, but this year he's probably taken his form up a step. He won at the 7 meeting over course and distance off ground. They came from miles back to pick up Bordota. And again, the last time they probably his first go at a grey one in the Clarence House over a distance that was too short from. He was just staying on. He has one run style. He'll be sitting out the back of your screen, coming up the hill, and he will fly home. He's 22.0. I prefer if he's a bit of a bigger price, but I would have this a small little win bet on him, and I'd probably bet him 3 places if it's available and 4 places if it's available. I think we might get the 8 or more in this, hopefully. So I'd have him as a nice place, but anyway, to hit the top 3 or 4 in this, and maybe he'll even win.
Gus has pointed out that Charlie already had her the last day. I'm very sorry, Charlie. I stole that from under your nose. It's a disgrace. And so Banbridge is the team steam in the Ryanair. The Stayers Hurdle we come to next. We've got a few here with Irish Point. But first of all, Matt, what's the underbet trend?
Only one of the last 4 winners had won any race that season. It's always dangerous using longer-term trends in a changing race, and I think the Stayers Hurdle is changing. Used to be a very thin division, much more competitive now. Also, they used to go steadily, tended to fan out the straight loads still in contention. There were a few hard luck stories, so the same horses used to win a lot. But if Flooring Porter or Dashel Drasher turn up, we may get a strong gallop again. And 5 of the last 7 winners have gone off double-figure prices, including Liz Nagar Oscar, 51.0. Last year, Cider Burley, 34.0. It's no longer a race for bankers who line up with a string of ones next to their name. Don't be afraid to back one at a price.
That's the extraordinary stat. So 3 of the last 4 had been defeated on every start that season, and that's why you're with 21.0 shot home by the Lee.
Yeah, I've taken a bit of a punt on him. He ran a good race, beaten less than 4 lengths in 5th last year, despite making a desperate error at the 6th, losing his hind end. That looked to cost him more than he was beaten by. He's ran twice this season. Good 5 1/4 lengths third to Bob Ollinger and the Liz Mullen over an inadequate 2-4. Comes out the best horse in the race. He's carrying a £9 penalty. Form's worked out pretty well. I thought he'd take plenty of beating when trying to win the 3-mile Grade 1 at Leopardstown at Christmas again. Hated being in front, spat the dummy. I mean, he is a quirky sort. He's a chancy proposition. He might just not fancy it for whatever reason on the day. But there should be pace for him to be ridden behind here. As I said, if Flooring Porter shows up, may get the real test of stamina he craves. So it's a race that could still develop on the run up to the meeting. But from an anti-purse point of view, I'll have a small go at Home by the Lee.
All right. Every now and again, you see Micheál Deasy typing in the document and you think, where, what, and how? What has he written? But sometimes we have to tweet out a picture of him with a crown on his head because he's the king of the jumps, because he's found one at a big old price. And there it is. Buddy 1, 90.0. DC, take it away.
No, this is a... need a lot of faith with this kind of pick. But look, this horse, he has festival form. He finished 3rd in the Martin Pipe last year, ran a cracker, and again, ran very well at Aintree at a higher grade. Kept going during the summer, and he actually won at the track at the November meeting. He won a handicap there, beating the newest one. He was running off 11.7. He was very well punted on the day. He had a go then at the top level behind Tihupu and in the Hatton's Grace hurdle again. That just I think he was beaten 27 lengths now. Probably just wasn't that on the day. He'd already had a fairly long season. He'd been on the go since July at that stage, and completely bombed out at Leopardstown at Christmas. The trainer said, look, he was a bit injured, and he's been freshened up now at this stage. Again, he's a massive price. He's 90.0. This is the only race that he can possibly run in. If he turns up on the day, he's going to be shorter than that. And again, look, he has course form. He'll stay the trip. It's a massive price. This is going to be a 3 or 4 place bet. You might even be getting 5 places in the Matchbook Exchange for this. I just think it is worth a swing at something, and this, as Matt said, at a big price. I think there's good horses at the top of the market, but they're all a bit short. They're all kind of the same kind of ability, and I'd rather be on one at 90.0 than at 4.5, 5.5, and I have Monkfish backed in this as well, but looks like he's going for the Gold Cup.
That's what I was going to come to. So, and Brennan has asked about Monkfish. Is that everyone's understanding? Gold Cup.
It's been mentioned a few times in, I don't know, like I think Willie mentioned it. I think Joe Chambers mentioned it as well, and David Case said it at a preview night the other night. And if I was him, I probably would run him in the Gold Cup. He probably has he's a Gold Cup kind of horse. But I'd love to see him line up in this. I think he'd have a right go off it, but the vibes are he's going for the big one, and he's drifted a lot for this.
Okay, Irish Point then in a few parts. Charlie, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, Deasy is saying that they're all sort of much ability wise. I just think this horse maybe has a chance to be a bit better than the rest of them. He was a great run winning novice hurdler over 2.5 at Aintree. Started the season off winning readily in a grade 3 over 2 mile 1, and then handled the step up to nearly 3 miles seriously well at Leopardstown, thrashing Asterion for Longe. I think a good gallop in this race will help him. He'll be able to be slotted in, ridden patiently. And he just is the one of all of these that maybe has the chance to elevate himself above his contemporaries. And, Tiupu in the same ownership is the one at the market. He's kind of had his chance in this race before. And yeah, I think if Irish Point turns up, I'm surprised he isn't going to be a stronger favourite than what he is right now.
Dan?
Yeah, it's interesting. The vibes around him just don't seem that strong. Like, it all seems about Tiupu, but to me, I'd say this is the horse with most potential. And if you go back through all of his form, it's all really classy. He even beat Ile Francais on a Grade 1 AQPS race as a 3-year-old. Was he second to Marine Nationale in a Royal Bond, won the Mersey at Aintree over 2.5 miles and hit the line strongly on that occasion. Obviously, the Christmas Hurdle was a slowly run race, but it was on heavy ground. So that it's kind of mixed messages about how guaranteed he is to be a proper 3-miler, but looks a really uncomplicated horse, has a lot of upside, and I'd rather back him in the race, given it's his first go, rather than Tiupu, who last year probably had a golden opportunity to win what was a weak race. This isn't exactly a vintage renewal either, but I'd rather back the horse who's having his first go at it.
And one more for Irish Point. Steve?
Yeah, I can't believe that Tiupu's in front of him in the betting, to be honest, because this horse is much better potential. Tiupu couldn't beat. He finished third past the post behind 2 pensioners last year, and that's the kind of the thing with the stay in division at the moment. It's just full of horses that have had their day, like Paisley Park, Dashel Drasher, and Cider Burley. That might have been great horses in their time, but it's just not. And it's right for something like Irish Point. How anyone could even consider running this horse in any other race, I just don't know. I think he's the best by a mile, and I think he's the best bet of the week if he runs.
Okay, your second best bet of the week. And who else have we got? Oh, Donn! Having everyone crab Tiupu. Donn.
Like, he got to within 3 parts of a length of winning the race last year when he won the Galmoy Hurdle. It was probably about 6 or 7 weeks before the race, but he had a tough race there, and he didn't have a great run through the final part of the race. The last year, he still only beaten 3 parts of a length by his stable companion Cider de Burley, who's back again for more. He's a 12-year-old this year. When Tiupu won the Hatton's Grace Hurdle back in early December, Gordon Elliott said nearly directly afterwards that they were going to keep him fresh and bring him to Cheltenham for the Stayers Hurdle. He's run 8 times off a break of 50 days or more. He's won all 8 times off that break. He's obviously best fresh. It's a fair punt to take him from the Hatton's Grace Hurdle all the way to Cheltenham, but obviously that's his only goal this year, is to win a Stayers Hurdle. And okay, I'm sure he'll go on to Punchestown or maybe even Liverpool afterwards. But this is obviously his objective. He's only 7 now. He's got form with the track, and I know he's probably a better horse on softer ground. It was soft last year, and that's a little bit of a concern. But he's probably a stronger horse this year as a 7-year-old than he was last year as a 6-year-old. And yeah, I think he's the one they ought to beat.
That's Tiupu. Have we done? I think we're all done, aren't we? Yes. Right. So a couple of big shouts. Home by the Lead, Buddy One, Irish Point, and a few places in Tiupu. Any other bets then on the day? I'm sticking up this Indigo Breeze. If he runs, hasn't been seen for over a year. Eugene O'Sullivan has picked a horse up. Maxine will ride, obviously. And I think I don't know his British mark, but I mean, the real whacker form from a year and a half ago is very strong, but I would assume he'll get under 145. Just thought he was interesting, keeping an eye on. It's his only entry. Indigo Breeze currently 60.0. Don, back at you.
Yeah, just Madara again, the plate. If he goes here, he's got the option of going for the plate or going for the Grand Annual, but he does stay 2.5 miles. He could improve for going up to 2.5 miles and running here in the new course versus the old course of the Grand Annual. So, yeah, Madara for the plate if he goes.
Micheál Deasy.
I have two up there now. So I have for Ukdaleen in the Pertemps. Almost landed a massive gamble a couple of years ago in the Brown Advisory. I think Matt touched them in one of the previews there not so long ago that Gordon wasn't running this and he's missed a few races to take up his appointment in the Pertemps. Right good horse. I know he'll have a big weight, but they'll stick a claim on him, and he's a top class hurdler. I think he beat Vanillier the year that Vanilla won the Albert Bartlett. He beat him at Christmas, so I think he's a good chance in that. And the other one is one I put up last year. I actually put him up as my charity bet in a Cheltenham Preview Night at 33s, and got absolutely killed by the boss. But it was Rapper in the Kim Muir. I thought he had a right chance last year, and I think he burst a blood vessel in the race. He pulled up. No, it's not great to be backing horses that have bust blood vessels, but I think he's back. He has run well. He ran well at Cheltenham in the international meet in December. He was 8.5 lengths behind Broadway Boy, and he ran a right race the last time behind 300 through 5. He's beaten a length, and Henry Daly is in serious form. He's 31% the last 2 weeks. He's had a 20-1 winner win by 8 lengths, and he's a 16-1 winner win by 8 lengths. And the last time he was in form like this was Christmas 2022, when again he had something like 8 winners out of 14 runners. He's running hot. He's come into form right around Cheltenham. Rapper has been backed as well. He's come into, I think he's about 16.0 now. I think he'll have a right cut off to Kim Muir.
Steve, one for you in the Mayor's Novice.
Yeah, Golden Ace, who's trained by Jeremy Scott, Dasher Drasher's trainer. He always seems to have a good horse. And this is definitely a good horse. He's won twice at Taunton, beat the boys first time up and then cruised home last time. He also finished second at Dice at Enos in a bumper, but she's been improved since then. She's top class, I'm sure of it.
And a couple for you, Dan.
Yeah, a couple on the handicaps. So in the plate, Safara, who we kind of mentioned in passing, obviously has form that ties in with Hunter Jean and Calixios. Obviously, a lot of us fancy for the Arkle. He pulled well clear of Mr. Policeman last time out when chasing home Calixios on that occasion. One of the gambles of the festival last year in the Coral Cup. I think he went off 7.5 after being double figures for pretty much all the way up. Forgive him that run because he was on the worst part of the track and never had a chance. But he won a Michael Purcell, obviously over 2.5 miles. He's a half-brother to King's Odyssey, who actually finished 4th in a plate, and the half-brother Sandy Mount Rose as well, who won over 3 miles. I think stepping up in trip is sure to suit. Novices have a good record in the race, as does Gordon Elliott. So I hope they go for this race and not the Grand Annual. And then in the Pertemps, Gabby's Cross, who's currently rated £13 lower over hurdles than he is over fences, but he's never been a great jumper. So I don't think there's any reason to suggest he won't be as effective over hurdles. Had a couple of runs over the smaller obstacles earlier this season. Both worked out well. He was second to the aforementioned Buddy One when coming from off the pace. Obviously, Buddy One then went on to win at Cheltenham. Lots of subsequent winners in behind on that occasion as well. Qualified at Punchestown when second to Jody Ted, who'd previously just won over fences easily off a 10-bound higher marker, then went off favourite for the Paddy Power. Again, didn't exactly get the run of the race on that occasion. Really good effort in second. That qualifiers produced 3 of the last 6 winners of the Pertemps final. Been freshened up with this in mind, seemingly, and has run extremely well off a break in the past. He won a Galway handicap of 137 and was only beaten 4 lengths in a Paddy Power of 143 after breaks of 3 months or more. So I think if he is aimed at this, I think he'd have a good chance. Obviously, we find out his mark tomorrow, but he'll be off a lower weight than he is over fences. And I think his hurdles form this season would suggest he's capable of defying whatever mark he's given.
All right, best Thursday lays. There's only one, and it's you, Matt, who is, I mean, she's a price, but you want to take her on all ends up.
Yeah, both in the win and the place market here, Dysart, Enos. I think the front 2 in the market are really good. She's avoided the penalty and much has been made of that. But 5 of the 8 winners so far have carried the full £5 penalty. Usually a big field. They go quickly. 2 of her 3 runs have been in really weak races. I'll be worried about whether she's quite ready for this. So, yeah, a lay, particularly in the place market.
And on to the best bets then for the day. I'll just go in order. It's in front of me. My best bet is Brighter Days Ahead in the Mare's Novice. Think she's an absolute rocket. Matt, your best bet?
Banbridge in the Ryanair.
Don.
Stick with Teapu in the Stairs Hurdle.
Against Steve.
Irish Point.
And Charlie.
Banbridge in the Ryanair.
Dan, one of the handicaps.
Had to be. Yeah, I'll go with Safarur in the plate. Hopefully he goes here, not the Grand Annual.
Biggest price, best bet, Deasy.
Fugitive win place in the Ryanair.
All right, we move on to the Triumph, where we've got another big, short price favourite. Try and get that right, odds on shot. In the form of Sergino. What's the trend, Matt Toons, for the Triumph?
So the juvenile division, pretty thin nowadays. Field sizes are roughly half what they were before the Fred Winter was introduced. Luck in running much less of an issue than it used to be. Form tends to get repeated. And given these juveniles developing so rapidly, recent graded form, often the biggest clue. So the trend is that horses that are unbeaten over hurdles and that have won a graded hurdle since the turn of the year, 8 from 24 since 2005, 117% profit backing them.
You are a no bet in the race, but select Sergino, as does Dan. DC, you've put Sergino. Are you interested at 1.9 in front of us or not?
Yeah, I think he'll win. I think he was visually impressive. The time was good apparently, and I think he's just I'm happy enough to stick with him this race. I thought the rest of them were grand at Leopardstown. They're all entitled to improve, but I thought he was just really, really good. Don't have much more to say on that. It's not a huge betting race for me to Triumph.
Okay, a couple of shouts for Madgeborough. Steve, I'll let you lead off.
Yeah, not so long ago, Irish trained horses couldn't win the Triumph, and now they seem to win it every year. And I've just not taken with Sergino. I thought the race fell apart last time. I think it's a very, very thin division in Britain, and it's untested in Ireland. And I think the very fact that Matchbook came over from France and running a Grade 1 first time up and was able to finish third, despite doing plenty wrong, but jumped well and travelled well. And I think can reverse the form with Carjess and Stormheart on the back of that, and that would put him right in there, Matchbook.
Don.
Yeah, I agree with Steve, Tom. Like Matchbook, that spring juvenile hurdle that Carjesi won, in which Stormheart was second, Matchbook was third. It's always a good pointer to the Triumph hurdle. Even the beaten horses come on, and a fair few beaten horses have come on and won the Triumph hurdle, including horses who've reversed places with horses who've beaten them in the spring hurdle. So Matchbook, there was a lot to like about what he did. He got out in front. His jumping was very good. And even after he was passed on the run to the final flight, he still stuck on really well afterwards. And Willie Mullins afterwards, he just seemed to think that he would come on quite a bit for that run. And you can understand, I mean, that's logical. It was his first run in Ireland, first run for Willie Mullins, first run since last April, and only the second run of his life. So you'd expect that he would come on quite a bit from that. Carjesi, she did well to win, and she came on from her run over Christmas, and she reversed places with Caliconti in that. So she's a player in the race, but just thought Matchbook was the horse to take out of the spring hurdle, and fully agree with Steve that I think the division in Ireland has more depth to it than the division in England. Sergino looked very good in beating Burdett Road, and Burdett Road had looked good before that. But I just think that what Matchbook achieved, or what the spring juvenile hurdle horse of the first three, actually Stormheart was second, what they all achieved, I think there was a greater depth to that race, and for me, Matchbook was the horse to take out of it.
I think that's Ina's Green Hats who says Stormheart, second run underrated, make-up ground suited by the hill, ? Stormheart was the horse that Charlie put up on the Cheltenham Trail at a massive price, and you're sticking with Stormheart, Charlie?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and completely agree with that comment. You know, he was he made up a lot of ground. I thought he was trapped quite right with Paul Townend. Probably didn't get the ideal trip where I thought Carjess maybe did. And then, yeah, he stayed on very well from the back of the last flight. You'd imagine this 2 mile one on the new course should suit him ideally. He seems a good jumper. I agree with Don that I think that piece of form from Leopardstown is the best one on offer. Sergino could be a freak, but at 1.66, I've no interest in backing him at that price. And Stormheart, I just think it is a really good value bet in a race that, bar maybe the top one being exceptional, the rest of them bring a similar sort of level. And like I say, Stormheart's race run at Leopardstown, I think, can be upgraded. And this course and the trip and track should suit him really well.
Mick says Mighty Bandit, huge price for the Triumph. First half of Warren Great Chase at treble figures. I'll see what price that horse is on the Matchbook Exchange. Alex Jeffrey says Sergino, the lay of the meeting. And incidentally, we'll be coming to our lays of the meeting at the very end of this. That is off the back of our... He is 130.0, Mighty Bandit. But yeah, obviously one of those sale horses. Might tickle someone's fancy. Moving on to the Albert Bartlett then. We'll kick off with the trend first of all, Matt.
In the last 10 years, 9 of the 10 winners have gone off 12.0 or bigger. All 17 runners that went off 5.5 or shorter have been beaten. For me, this is the only one of these 13 grade ones where I don't usually play anti-post. Winners usually a bigger price during festival week and often on the day. So rather than having a bet at this stage, I like to comprise a short list.
Okay, a horse who you put up at the start of the season as a horse to follow is a subsequent top-level winner, Captain Teague, and that is Don's selection. Don.
Yeah, he's kind of shaped like a staying type of horse for a while. Like he won the Grade 2 hurdle at Chepstow in the early part of the year, the Persian War, and he was beaten at the November meeting. But the November meeting was an unusual meeting this year in that horses that went around the inside appeared to be advantaged. Normally at that meeting, if you go wide, you tend to be in the better ground, but he was a wee bit wide. And Manella Micheál raced around the inside. I thought he did well enough to get as close as he did. And then he won the Challow last time. He only won by a length and a half in the end, but he was the most likely winner from a long way out. He seemed to idle when he got to the front. He was a horse. He was only just doing as much as he needed to do. And he shapes like a horse who'll get further. His dam won over 2 miles and 5 furlongs. And yeah, he's been an Albert Bartlett type of horse for quite a while. Shallow hurdle horse winners, shallow hurdle winners tend to get further than the 2.5 mile trip. They tend to be more stamina horses. It's soft ground in the middle of December at Newbury, so that makes sense. And I think he can improve again for the step up and trip.
Okay, that is Captain Teague. Bigger prices now. Charlie, first of all.
Yeah, Crow Park for me, very expensive pointer, cost 400 grand. And he's been a bit of a slow burner, but I thought his run on his penultimate start at Navan when he won a Grade 3, he looked like he's got stamina in abundance, stayed on very well to win by 3 1/4 lengths. I think the horse that finished third in that race is a subsequent graded winner. And then, I mean, he was disappointing behind Reed and Tommy Wrong in the Grade 1 at Nace, but I don't know. I didn't really see any particular reason or major excuse from there, but just it's more of an interest that I think he will be ideally suited by this step up to 3 miles. It's a serious test for these young horses, and as Matt said, often it can produce a bit of a shock and a big price winner. And I thought this horse just had enough of a profile and potential quality to take a race like this, and also will be ideally suited by the step up of the trip, because you've got to stay very, very well in this race.
Okay, that's Croke Park. DC.
Just unmute myself there. I've gone for one at a big enough price. I just like this horse idea, Stellar Story, and he has gone from 26.0 to 38.0 while we were recording this, which isn't a good sign. I just think that he, like in previous years, you always kind of wanted a horse that had plenty of experience stuff. He's had four runs this year. He won on debut at beating RG Hill. Then he was beaten by Slade Steele at Navan there at the start of December, but I think that the trip was just too sharp for him. I think they just ran away from him at the end of it. Ran much better at Christmas, beaten by Loughlin at Limerick, beating the length, and then he ran like shite at the Dublin Racing Festival behind Dancing City. No, he's had a very similar prep to Vanillier before he won this a few years ago. I think to step up to 3 miles and this race, just the way this race is usually run, would suit him. For all that, I think that he's the kind of horse that might finish third or fourth in this and going to be a much better chaser. So I'll be backing him win place. But I'm happy to have him inside the 38.0.
Matt, give us your shortlist and maybe just answer why the market often has this so wrong.
I think there's a bigger difference between the trials and the festival race here. Most of these have either been running over shorter or in slowly run 3-mile races. And this is a much bigger difference in the test. Big field usually get nearly the full field of 20 and they go a good gallop. So I think that's partly why. Croke Park, absolutely agree with what's been said about him. I think the excuse was that he was slightly lame at Naas, and also that was when Gordon's horses weren't finishing out their races. Johnny Who, he was a fast finishing 2 lengths fourth to Captain Teague in the Challow, shaping as if a step up to 3 miles, a strongly run race would suit him. Wasn't suited in the Classic behind Gidley Park when they went very slowly. And finally, a horse that isn't currently entered, but is apparently likely to be supplemented. Now is the hour. A good point form, winning by distance, then getting chinned by Asian Master. Really moderate early on over hurdles, but when he got to the Prestige, he was absolutely hosed up by 17 lengths. That was on Haydock Heavy. May have been the case he was the only one who handled the test. He is by Westerner. It might be that he needs testing ground to be supplemented. So he's one for Weather Watch on the run up to the meeting. So as there is usually that full field of 20 and it's such an uncertain race, tend to split mistakes back 2 or 3 win only. So I'm not pulling the trigger yet, but Croke Park, Johnny Who, and Now is the Hour, top of my shortlist at the moment.
All right, as we move on to the Gold Cup, I want to remind you that we're trying to hit 5,000 Matchbook YouTube subscribers by the end of Cheltenham. Very easy to do. Head to the YouTube page and subscribe. It means that all of our videos are there for you whenever you want them, and you get a notification about that. It's a great no-cost way of supporting the podcast, and we're nearly up to 5,000. So if you like it, do subscribe on the YouTube channel, and there's a £25 free Cheltenham bet competition out there, and there's one free bet of £25 on the Matchbook Exchange for anyone that likes and comments under the video. 1 in each 50, that is. So be one of those 50 and you could land yourself a £25 free bet on one of these horses potentially in the Gold Cup. But I'll get Matt to give us the trend first, please.
The trend is that the shortest priced debutante in the Gold Cup this century, 11 from 26, 111% profit. Gold Cup takes a lot out of horses. The market perennially overestimates the chances of those coming back for another crack at the race. And at the moment, the shortest priced debutante looks like being one of Shishkin, Fast or Slow, or Jerry Colombe.
Okay, go on. You're with Jerry Colombe then.
Yeah, I am. I think it's an open race beyond the favourite. If Galopin de Champs turns up in top form, then as we know, he's going to win. But we know also how hard it is for horses coming back in the Gold Cup. Jerry Colombe won the Down Royal Grade 1. Unusual for second season horses to do that. He's only the third second season chaser to win that. And he then bombed out at Christmas. And he might have had excuses there. Few of them apparently got agitated in the preliminaries. Jack Kennedy had his feet out the irons. If you forgive him that, he'd be a solid second favourite here. Gordon's made it clear all season he would only have Jerry tuned up for one day in the Gold Cup. Do think ground conditions are important. He's shown form on a sound surface, but properly soft ground would be a big boost to his chances. Water table's obviously high after the wet winter, so wouldn't need much rain in the day or two beforehand to turn it soft for the Gold Cup. To some extent, you therefore need to be on weather watch with 18 days to go, but the sort of price he is, I think there's enough juice in it to back Jerry Colombe now.
Most interesting, I think, is Steve Jones's initial shout, certainly. But you can pitch your two in together. Both come out of the King George, Steve.
Purely because I think Galopin de Champs will probably win, and looking for something, maybe place or maybe win in place. But I can't quite get my head around the fact that the only horse to put it up to Galopin de Champs last year, Brave Man's Game, is sort of ignored. The very fact that horses like Jerry Colombe, I don't think it's got the good enough form by any match, and Shishkin, who's pretty unreliable. And in both of the, I mean, you take Shishkin, Hewick and Braveman's Game, they're not a million miles off him in the King George. Hewick might even have won. So why they've both been ignored, I don't know. So I'd be looking to back them place. If you want to back them for win, I don't think they'll win, but place only, Braveman's Game and Hewick, I think you turn a profit.
Okay, currently 24.0, 22.0, Braveman's Game and Hewick. DC, because you've got a couple of big prices, take it away.
Yeah, the first one is Gentleman's Game. I was at Cork today. He won his maiden, and I was walking around having a smoke, and I saw him up Mouse Morris, and I went over to him and said, horse down the first, nice horse. He goes, so I was like, oh yeah, okay. And I've been kind of following ever since. He has, I think he has always been kind of just waiting for him to go chasing. He was brilliant at the start of the season in the Charlie Hall. I know that he's had a long time off, but I think if there's any man that will have him on ready on the day to run the race of his life, it'll be Mouse Morris. And again, he's a big price. We're definitely going to get 3 or 4 places in this, so I'll be backing him. Probably only have a small bet on him to win, just in case, but I'll be mostly playing him in the place markets. And the other one then is Cork Rambler. He's serious horse, unbelievable horse. Don't need to go into his back farm. This whole season will have been kind of geared towards the spring to run a good race in this, and then go back to entry. Again, you're getting, what is he? He 20 point something. I can't see him being out of the first 3 or 4 again. He'll just be flying up the hill. He'll be a bit outpaced at the start of it. I think that he'll probably find it tough, but there'll be no horse finishing better than him. And I think if you have the two of them on side for the place 3, 4, 5 markets, you'll have a bit of profit after it.
Owen questions why there's no love for the real whacker, but I'm pretty sure Matt Toombs put him up at a massive price on one of the Cheltenham trails. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. He's nodding. That's good. Getting shorter now. So Charlie back with Jerry Colomb.
Yeah, for most of the reasons that Matt said, as in I just think he's become a very backable price on the back of one run behind Galopin Des Champs. Galopin Des Champs might be an outstanding horse, no doubt about it, but this horse sort of was building up all the credentials to be a future Gold Cup winner. I think he'd definitely beat the real whacker last year with a more aggressive ride, and I don't see any reason. This Gold Cup trip of 3 1/4 miles should suit him really well as well, and I think it's dangerous to write a horse off just on the back of that one slightly subpar effort. And I think the fact that he's had plenty of time to get over that, 28th of December through to Cheltenham means he comes here a fresh horse. Gordon, all the way through, as Matt said, has talked that he's going to have him primed for one day, which is the Gold Cup. So I'm expecting a much better show. And I think if there is one horse in here that could serve it up to Galopin Des Champs over this trip, track and test, then Jerry Colomb has that sort of credentials.
Don, you're sticking with your long way out shout.
Yeah, I just think Fast or Slow is a very, very good horse who maybe isn't getting the credit that he should have got so far. He's met Galopin Des Champs 4 times. The score between them is 2-2. He beat him on merit in the Punchestown Gold Cup last April. He beat him on merit again in the John Durkan Chase on his debut this season. And okay, that was 2 miles, 3.5 furlongs. But when he won the Punchestown Gold Cup, he had to stay. He won it through stamina. And okay, he's got 4.5 lengths to make up on him on the running in the Irish Gold Cup the last day. But Galopin Des Champs, Paul Townend dictated the pace out front to suit his own horse. And we know Galopin Des Champs stays. Of course, he's a Gold Cup winner. But Fast or Slow stays as well. And the sectionals tell you that it was a race that was run to suit a pacey horse. And I think Fast or Slow could even outstay him. I know there was talk about Fast or Slow going for the Ryanair instead, and he held that entry. But he's a stamina horse. He stayed the 3 miles of the Punchestown Gold Cup well the last day. And in the John Durkan Chase, that was the worry about him dropping down in trip. Would he have the pace for 2.5 miles? He proved that he had. He goes well at Cheltenham as well. He was only beaten the neck by Cork Rambler in the Ultima last year. And he was only beaten a short head, I think, in the Carl Cup the year before. So he goes well at Cheltenham as well. And yeah, I think he's got a big chance of giving Galopin Des Champs a real race again.
And then there's some man out there looking at the price on Matchbook about the favourite going, how's he odds against?
Honestly, I can't believe I was the only one on the document who put Galopin Des Champs for this. Like, I mean, this is from someone who's almost been crying out to take on Galopin Des Champs, especially going into the DRF. I was thinking, well, I'd love to take on with L'Homme Presse. But a combination of the fact that I thought Galopin Des Champs may have another hard race at the DRF, but in the end he didn't. I think, as Don said, it was a relative test of speed at the trip, and I don't think that would have left any kind of mark whatsoever. And then L'Empresse, to me, just showing very little zest at Ascot means that I just can't really see Galopin Des Champs beaten. We know the level of performance he can put in, i.e. last year's Gold Cup and over Christmas as well this year in the Savills. I don't think any other horse in this race is capable of those level of performances. Obviously, it isn't easy to back up a Gold Cup win, but from what we've seen this season, I don't think he's exactly showing any signs of decline. And while he have to be a really, really top-notch staying chaser to rack up back-to-back Gold Cups, on the back of what's already been quite a busy campaign, I think he really is that good. And he's shown he's versatile, he can stay. So that's not going to be an issue for him. If it turns into a test of speed, he's more than capable of winning a race like that as well. So I just am surprised slightly that these odds against. I guess there's a few challenges we're attracting that kind of win and play support now, big prices, but I think Galopin Des Champs, even if he turns up at 95%, I think he'll take a hell of a lot of beating.
All right, we move on from the Boodles Gold Cup to any other Friday bets. I'm with Keita Bourbon in the last race, whose second favourite currently 10.0, the Martin Pipe. He was given a strange entry at a British track, I think, for Willie to see that he would have got into under 145. I think he's got a lovely profile for the race. Don.
Yeah, I like Answer to Cave, Terence O'Brien's horse. He holds an entry in the Albert Bartlett hurdle as well, but I think the Martin Pipe hurdle, I'd be very interested in if he goes in this. He's got a mark of 134 in Ireland, and it'll be interesting to see what mark he gets in Britain. It shouldn't be too much more than that, but I think he's an improving horse. He ran in the Grade 2, the Doran's Pride race at Limerick over Christmas when the early pace wouldn't have suited him. He was probably in the wrong part of the track, and he was still only beaten a length and a half by Loch Lynn. Then he went to Naas last time, and he was impressive in winning, beating two good horses of Willie Mullins. So I think that's a 2.5 mile trip, fast run 2.5, on which the emphasis is on stamina. That should suit him well. And John Shinnick, who usually rides him, obviously it's a conditional riders race, so he should be able to claim in that race as well and keep the ride. And Terence O'Brien's horses, he's been in good form all season. So I think he's a bit under the radar, Answer to Cave.
16.0. Charlie, go on. One for the Hunter Chase. You're helping us all out here.
Yeah. Sign the mine in the Hunter Chase for Fiona Needham. I mean, it's a race again dominated, funnily enough, by Irish train runners, but this mare is very progressive. She's probably a younger sort of animal than you'd normally see in this sort of race. She's an 8-year-old. Has progressed through the British point-to-point ranks. Won at Stratford at the end of the season. Needed a comeback run at Alnwick in a point-to-point, and then was very impressive on her last start, winning a Hunter Chase at Wetherby, where she slammed Benny's King by 15 lengths. Slow ground, holds no fears for her. She's a saint to saint, and she just is one that probably is going to come in here slightly under the radar and possibly underestimated because she doesn't have that sort of profile that some of her rivals will have. But where this mare is very good, and she is one to kind of follow throughout the Hunter Chases in the coming seasons because I think she's got a heap of ability.
Dan.
Yeah, so we go to the Martin Pipe. Waterford Whispers, I think, is really interesting. All his form is stacking up. Beat Attaboy Charlie in a 2-mile Galway maiden hurdle over 2 miles, despite errors. See, that rival's now rate 123. What a big handicap, and was going very well at the DRF in the 2-mile handicap there. Then beat Answer to Cave, who, as Dom mentioned, over 2.5 miles. He was getting weight from that rival, but still relatively inexperienced. Stayed on really well. Obviously, Answer to Cave, as Dom mentioned, has gone on to frank that form. Last saw him over Christmas in a 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. Really slowly run race on that occasion, which would not suit this horse. He's clearly a stayer, will be a 3-mile chaser in time. But the form of that, I think, is decent. The third Yeat Star was third in the 3-mile handicap at the DRF. Went up 4 pounds to a mark 127. Now, it's going to be maybe touch and go, and we'll find out tomorrow what his mark in the UK will be. I think if he gets 5 pounds to a mark 132, he'll probably squeeze in at the bottom of the weights. And I think given that his form is stacking up, I think that'll be what he's more likely to get, 5 or 6 pounds, I would say, from the British handicapper. Completely unexposed, improving horse. I think he's going to be a really impressive 3-mile chaser in time, and that's the kind of horse that generally goes very well in a Martin Pipe.
3 for Deasy.
Yeah, the first one is Bialystock in the county. I fancied him the last at Leopardstown. He was a big price the night before, but he was actually put up by Price Wise and was smashed into very sharp price, cracked into about 13 to 2. but was brought down. He was running fine. He was brought down by Charlie, actually, who Dan mentioned there. I can see him being Paul Townend's pick on the day because I can't see Absurd having a chance. I can see Paul Townend picking Bailey stock and he will collapse in price. He'll go off near the top of the market. I'd say he's the right win place chance. The other ones then, two, Keita Bourbon, you mentioned there earlier, he looks a right horse. He said 2 runs, won very easily, and actually what kind of brought it to my attention was really, I was looking at one of his stable tours, and there was just one line about Keita Bourbon. It was like just the handicaps for him. He looks a good horse, and Gigginstown have landed a few big price winners in this race. Now he's at a big price of 10.0, but I think he'll probably go off close to the top of the market. And then Canto Bruno is another one again in the Martin Pipe. He was so impressive at the start of the season at Cheltenham. He's at the moving to Gavin Cromwell now. He absolutely romped home over course and distance, and he's run fairly shite since looking after the mark. I think he said this is his most likely target. I think if he rocks up here, he's going to be. I'd imagine he'll go off for 6.0. He's a double figure price now. I think he's about 14.0 now. So I'll be having a bet on both of them.
Friday lays. Matt and I are laying the front of the Abbott Bartlett market. I'm following Matt in there very much because that's the trend he's exploited over the years much. Don, you've got a lay for us.
Yeah, so Gino with the Triumph Hurdle, Tom. I just think that he's priced up on the back of a really impressive performance the last day, but I think the Irish challenge is deeper than is suggested by the fact that he's an odds-on shot.
Okay, Steve, you agree?
Ditto. I thought that race that Don mentioned at Cheltenham last time completely fell apart. Burdett Road was way too keen and the rest weren't up to the job. And he's going to face a lot more competition. To say that he's got more chance of winning than not winning this race is insane.
And so to best bets, my best bet is Sir Gino in the Triumph Hurdle.
That is just what we wanted to hear, Don. That just puts the cherry on top.
Like water and oil, you two.
Insane. Good. 1.84 was a steal. Matt.
Jerry Colomb in the Gold Cup.
Don.
Marlborough in the aforementioned Triumph Hurdle.
Steve.
Yeah, Don's got everything right so far. So I
Get a room. Get a room, you two. It's pathetic. Charlie.
Yeah, Jerry Colomb for me as well.
Another big price for Dan.
Yeah, Waterford Whispers in the Martin Pipe.
And outdoing him with a big price is Deasy.
Carl Gramler flying home in the Gold Cup.
Oh, my word. Scenes. Right. All in Cheltenham, best long shots, best lays, and best bets. So this is for all 4 days of the Cheltenham Festival 2024. First of all, Matchbook Zero long shots. You know about Matchbook Zero. You should by now. The market goes live at 10 a.m. each and every day. You're most likely to be getting better odds on the exchange anyway. I've explained that plenty in the past. But with zero margin and zero commission with Matchbook Zero, that chance is further enhanced. So take advantage and head to Matchbook Zero for your win bets. Mine is Frero Bamboo in the Grand Annual, hoping that's where he goes at 26.0. If he is committed to that race, he won't be much shorter on the day. So wait. Matt?
I'll take a punt that Nigel does the appropriate thing and runs Broadway Boy in the Broadway.
Don?
Yeah, answer to Cave in the Martin Pipe Hurdle for Terence O'Brien.
Steve, because you love saying it.
Mighty Tom in the Grand Annual, even though we were said to put one in each race and you've gone into the Grand Annual, but I left you off. But this is why earlier when you said I had 2 best bets of the week, this is why, because Mighty Tom's the best bet at the prices.
Good man. Charlie?
Gambler in the Ultima.
Dan?
I love Matt Shout for Broadway Boy, but to keep the variety of the races, I'll go for Gabby's Cross in the Potemps Hurdle.
Okay, and DC?
Fugitive and Domain Man Gavin Sheehan in the Ryanair.
Good. So it's just Steve and I that have cocked that up because we've gone for the same race, and that's all my fault. Best lays. Mine's Marine Nationale in the Arkle. Matt Toombs, your lay of the week.
Lossymouth in the Mares Hurdle.
Don.
Sir Gino.
Steve. Steve.
Ditto.
Charlie.
Back to file in the Brown Advisory.
And Micheál Deasy.
Factifying the Brown Advisory.
Have you got one, Dan, or not? You haven't put anything. I sort of want
I
to
think
put you on the spot.
I forgot that one, but I'd probably join the lads on Fact to File because I think there's valid opposition to him.
Lovely. Okay. Right, best bets. Here we go for the Cheltenham Festival 2024. They are all in different races, so you can get a big old acca up, I hope, for your sake, everyone, because this should play pretty well if it cops. My best bet for the Cheltenham Festival is Brighter Days Ahead and the Mayor's Novice. Matt.
Firefox in the Supreme.
8.8. Don.
Yeah, Mashburn in the time.
Steve Jones.
Irish Point Stayers Hurdle.
Charlie.
Ambridge in the Ryanair.
You must have got that one in there before everyone else because everyone else fancied it. Dan.
Always napping the last race. Keep them waiting. Waterford Whispers in the Marlin Pipe, 17.0.
Shrewd. Very shrewd. And DC.
Il était temps in the Arkle.
Spoken like a true Frenchman.
Tom, before we go, I just Jesus, that was unreal, Dees. Before I go, Tom, there's a lot of negativity on Twitter. I just want everyone to look at how beautiful Cheltenham Festival is and how beautiful that race course is and how excited I am personally for the Cheltenham Festival. And a thank you to all you guys, all 7 of you, for being on the Cheltenham Preview Night tonight.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank
Right,
you. Is this your way of saying us you're not paying us double for a 2-hour show? That's what he's doing, isn't it?
Correct.
His thanks should be enough.
Yeah,
my phone will be hopping after this.
By the way, is he paying me? What?
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed
Moving
that. Thanks for sticking with us for the best part of 2 hours for the Cheltenham Festival preview with Team Matchbook 2024. Keep an eye out for us next week, Wednesday, 7:15 for the handicap special, which, not to blow smoke, but Matt Toons found plenty of winners on that last year, and a few others did as well. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll have a podcast on the Monday before Cheltenham for the Tuesday, Wednesday, and on the Wednesday for Thursday, Friday. Not long now. Bye-bye.